All right. Welcome back. We are live, Game 2 of the West Australian Ironman 40K 2021. We have another Dark Angels v Chaos match on the streaming table. We've adjusted the camera and mucked about with it a little bit. So hopefully we'll get some more stability this time. We've made some changes to the rig. We're missing probably an inch off the top edge and the bottom edge of the frame. But other than that, it's not so bad. All right. So in today's lists, what are we running secondaries wise? So what are Shane's secondaries?
So I've got some fights.
Yep.
While we stand with fight.
That helps if I can spell.
And vital intelligence.
It's always good when you get to know what's going on in advance. Hey, Rob. What are your secondaries, Rob?
Engage, assassinate,
Assassinate and what? And vital. So if you're interested in what the secondaries are, I understand why now people do this as a duo so that one of you can talk and one of you can type. But here we are. So if you're interested in the secondaries, they are in the chat now. Rob's running Engage on all fronts, Assassinate and Vital Intelligence, and Shane's secondaries are Stubborn Defiance, While We Stand We Fight, and Vital Intelligence. So not uncommon to see those sort of mirrors for secondaries. I'll chuck some lists in the chat in just a second while I've got them copied and pasted out. Thank you very much for joining us for round 2. If you're just joining us, you can find round 1 on YouTube very shortly. It's just going through the process of uploading the file because we were live with it. So we're going to grab Shane's and Rob's lists and have a quick look at those as well. So many tabs, so many windows. It's all good. Oh, something's definitely gone wrong there. You definitely don't need that. That's a massive hyperlink of epic proportions. That's because I was in the wrong tab. So if you haven't ever seen one of these events before, they are using a bracketed pairing process. So what that means is we're in a position where Shane is the number 1 bracket. So both of them are on 1 win and 0 losses. So Shane's list is the top of the bracket, and Rob's list is the bottom of the bracket. And what that means is that when you break up the brackets, it's done basically, it's done on win-loss first, and then it's done on the top of the bracket plays the bottom of the bracket. So both their lists are now in the chat if you want to go and check those out. So, Rob's list. I like Rob's title of his list. It's the Richard Siegler Unreleased LVO 2022 winning list. It's a Chaos Space Marine Battalion. Iron Warriors, specifically. We've got a Demon Prince with Wings, a Lord Discordant on Hellstalker, and a Master of Possessions. We've got 3 units of 10 Chaos Cultists. We've got 3 Decimators with 2 Soul Burners. We've got a Havoc Squad with 4 Reaper Chain Cannons. We then got a Chaos Demons Patrol with a Bloodmaster, 2 units of 20 Bloodletter Bombs with icons and instruments, and 5 Fiends. So a lot of firepower coming out of those 3 Decimators, and the Havocs obviously at closer ranges, and then we've got 2 big Bloodletter Bombs and the Fiends for locking stuff down and charging turn 1. So pretty interesting list, all things considered. If we go and have a look at Shane's Dark Angels list, he is running a Vanguard detachment with Ezekiel as the HQ and an Interrogator Chaplain with as the Warlord with a jump pack. He is upgraded to the Master of Sanctity and has the Teeth of Terror. We've then got a Blade Guard Ancient. We have a Deathwing Command Squad of 2 Deathwing Terminators times 2. And then we have a Deathwing Terminator Squad of 10 and a Ravenwing Apothecary and a Deathwing Assault Squad of 10 as well. We then get a second detachment, which is a Patrol, which is a Ravenwing Talon Master, 5 Infiltrators, 2 Attack Bikes with Multi-Melters, an Inceptor Squad with 3 Inceptors with Plasma, and leaves him with 7 command points in total. So this both armies deviate from the last game we saw, which is great. We're not just having sort of carbon copy experiences with what's going on. Both players very experienced at tournaments, so it should be a really good game to watch. I'm going to try and close all my other tabs that I've got open at the moment to try and make it a bit easier to concentrate on what's going on. All right. So the mission we're playing today is the secondary is Vital Intelligence, which makes me think that I should know the name of the mission. It is Vital Intelligence. That's what I thought. The secondary is actually Data Intercept, but that's okay. So if you're not familiar with the secondary is performing an action. 1 unit from your army can start to perform this action at the end of your movement phase. If it is within the range of an objective marker with no enemy units within range of it, the action is completed at the end of your next command phase, as long as the unit is performing it still within range of the same objective. And you score a number of victory points equal to the number of objective markers you currently control. So it's a very easy one for you to pick up 3, 4, 5 points, and this is obviously a 6 objective game. It's done on a diagonal deployment as well, which makes things a little bit interesting. Might as well adjust this camera while I'm here. There we go. So you've got Rob deploying at the top of the screen and Shane deploying at the bottom. Shane's truly ochre Aussie Space Marines in their green and yellow. And Rob's Hazard Stripe Decimators in the middle of the screen at the moment. Now, the boys are taking a little bit of time. We're actually 15 minutes into the round at this stage. And they're still messing about with deployments and things. So they are going to have to get a move on very rapidly now. Now, if you look at the 6 objectives, you'll notice 2 of them have changed. Now, in the last stream, we were running 3 objective secured neoprene markers, and we had 3 of the Toy Soldier Cartel variant markers. In this game, we have 2 of the OBSEC ones, 2 of the Toy Soldier ones, and the other 2 are a little bit special. If you've not seen these before, if you've not come to an event here in WA before, those are the Dice in Combat Squad's official objective markers that I produced for the guys via when we did the order for the objective secured ones. And they feature Shane, who is one of the players in this game today. Shane is actually the manager here at the Cudale Tavern. He's playing today. And like any good bottle shop or liquor store or whatever you want to call it, pub, tavern, whatever word you use wherever you are in the world, he stocks Warhammer. So you can actually go through the drive-through bottle shop and buy Warhammer, which I think is absolutely sensational. And he's always happy to have tournaments hosted here, which is great. It means we've got a fully licensed venue, we've got a full kitchen available to us, and obviously during the day, they've still got a restaurant component that we're not in, and they've still got a big bar garden, which you probably can see a little of behind me. So it's a great venue. But because Shane is the manager here and does stock Warhammer, he was obviously able to get a copy of Indomitus a little bit early. And it was around the same time I got our copy for Objective Secured. And he sent us a photo of him sat on his work, in his office, behind closed doors, I'm assuming outside of ours. And he is posing with Indomitus over his gentleman's area. But otherwise, he is naked. So there are 2 naked Shanes on the table, which is always a conversation starter for your opponent. Why is there naked photos of you on the table? I might try and share a better picture of what those actually look like. Maybe at the end of the game, once we've got some time. I don't want to interrupt the boys while they're playing, because they are taking a little bit of time to work out their deployments and things at the moment. Hopefully we'll have a more stable camera for today. Or for this game, at least. The last one wasn't. The guys kept nudging it, but that's okay. I've added some extra nudge bars to it, if you like, and hopefully we'll have a bit more stability. Excuse me. We've got a few different people now coming in to spectate now. It's a more reasonable hour. It's 10:30 in the morning here in Perth. We are 2 hours and 11 minutes to go in this round. I'm actually wondering whether I can get a round timer on screen somewhere as well. I'm sure I can sort something out. Sorry? No, I'm good for the moment, man. Thank you. Like I said in the last stream, all you have to do is sit behind a camera and people offer you drinks. I'm not 100% sure why, but it's happening. And I'm hoping that after lunchtime and the bar officially opens, it'll be even better. We'll see. So, guys, still taking a little bit of time here deploying. Now, it's a bit hard to tell, but Rob's Decimators, with the hazards to the yellow and black hazard stripes, are actually scratch builds from the looks of them. From here, I believe they are made from Armiger Warglaves, would be my guess. And then a bunch of Defiler parts as well. But that's only a guess. Rob, are your Decimators Armigers? Oh, okay, cool. So we've got a combination of Armiger and a Cataphrone Breacher. And then a bunch of Chaos parts and extra shoulder pads and to make them suitably intimidating and correct looking. I think that's one of the advantages of any sort of Chaos army, though, is you do get that opportunity to be a bit creative in how they look, and you can afford to have 3 Demon engines that all of them are on the right size base. They're all roughly the same size. They match the rough approximate size of the genuine model, but they each one of them is a little bit different, a little bit unique, and I think that, for a Chaos army, I think that works really well. when you're starting to do things like Eldar or even Space Marines to some degree, you end up in a situation where you really want the models to be roughly comparable in size and shape, but also in a lot of the like it's only the really nitty-gritty details you can afford to vary on because of the whole STC thing and the themes around the Imperium and certainly the Eldar. Whereas with Chaos and obviously with Orcs, you can kind of do what you feel like, which is great. So we're getting closer to the start of the game. I think we're just umming and ahhing about the last couple of deployments. We've got some, we've obviously got the bikes down. We've got some infiltrators in the middle of the table there behind the that solid line of sight blocker. The ruin up on the top right-hand corner, there's a decimator, there's a unit of cultists, and there's also the winged demon prince hiding up there as well. And then we've got the Reaper chain cannons and the other two decimators behind that middle piece of ruins. We've got some of those fiends off on the right-hand side there behind the shipping container. So it is a diagonal deployment, this particular mission, which makes it, again, quite interesting. But I think we're doing okay at the moment. The guys look like they're almost set to go. Hopefully they realise they've got just over 2 hours remaining now. I'm trying to figure out whether I can sneak in another round timer somewhere in the frame here. I'm not sure where I'll put it, but I'll put it somewhere. Maybe just above our logo up the top there. We'll see. We might adjust that in between rounds so we can get another look with a round timer running. I think it's always good to kind of get an idea of how much time's left over. Actually, if you're in the chat, I'd be interested to know how much noise, background-wise, there is. I'm getting a little bit through the headphones, but I don't really know how much you guys can actually hear. So, I'd be interested to hear how much of it's actually being picked up by the microphone. Obviously, the soundboard is showing me that there's some of it being picked up, but call it idle curiosity as to how much background noise is being transmitted. If they keep going the way they're going, I might have to give them a nudge and remind them they've only got 2 hours left. Oh no, there's the handshake. So I think we're going to roll off for turn one now. Oh, that's a very Aussie thing there. We've got the cheers with the glasses. For those of you who are following along outside of Western Australia, any of the social distancing restrictions here in Western Australia are essentially gone now. We've been very fortunate to avoid, by a considerable margin, the worst of what's been going on in the world. So while there is plenty of space in the room and we have made sure that the stream table has even more space around it, there is no requirement to wear masks. There is no requirement to, any of those sorts of things that you might be familiar with in other parts of the world. So it's why I can sit here without a mask on and stream. So we are following the very few mandatory things that we have to. I'm getting feedback in the chat that there's not too much background at all, which is great. I can see it is being picked up ever so slightly, but it's always good to know roughly what's going on. So obviously we've got some movement from the. I can't believe they're not Dark Angels. Now, that, I believe, is actually a scout move, though. As Rob's just checking out the table, trying to make some decisions. Rob, pass us those dice trays if you're in the way. The dice trays.
Oh, we can use it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, get the extra one out of the way. We'll leave one dice tray there. Also gives me a shot at seeing what the Fiends are doing. So we do have Rob moving for turn 1. Now, the interesting part about this sort of diagonal deployment is those Fiends now have an opportunity to basically cover hop. Where if Rob advances them down that flank, they're going to be able to move from behind the shipping container to behind that ruin and potentially end up in a position where they are going to be very hard to target because there's a lot of solid line of sight blockers on this table. So he's going to be in a really good spot to pressure the right-hand flank of the Space Marines with them probably turn 2. He's certainly going to have to it forces Shane to engage and deal with them rather than potentially dealing with other stuff he might prefer to charge and target. Just some little adjustments happened with the cultists out of line of sight in the top right-hand corner there. So we've now got some decimator movement happening. It looks like they're advancing. Interesting part about this is whether they're going to... I think he's trying to draw a bead on either the land speeder or those attack bikes. And I think he's probably going to manage it, certainly with the lead decimator. He's probably got out far enough that he can get a bead on the bikes. That second decimator, unfortunately, is just going to leave camera angle. Yep, he is, unfortunately. Just sneaks out of the camera. Now we've obviously got up the top there, we've got the Lord Discordant supporting those 2 decimators. We've got some Reaper chain cannons from a Havoc squad tucking themselves in that ruin. And then we've got some characters there as well. We've got the Skullmaster and the Master of Possessions as well. And this is quite an interesting situation with those characters being very difficult to shift because of, the other units around them. So they can afford to be a little bit more blasé in terms of where they move, as long as there's something closer to the enemy than them and they're within 3 of a friendly monster vehicle or unit of 3 models. Then the Lookout Sir rule kicks in and protects them pretty well. We've got the other decimator now moving itself around the ruin and sort of heading over towards that midfield ruin. It's funny, while you watch these games as an organizer, it becomes very apparent how much some of the terrain actually gets moved during a game, not through any deliberate maliciousness, but just through the part and parcel of moving models, particularly with this terrain's actually from a company called Weyland-Yutani, who are based in Europe, and Isik's been a friend of ours for a little while now, and this is actually one of our tables. And the terrain is very light, which is great because it makes it easy to move around, it's easy to store, but it also moves very easily on the tabletop. So, not quite sure how to resolve that, to be fair. I'm actually wondering whether I need to blue tack it down for the stream table so that you can't move it. That might actually be the solution. But obviously that has its own challenges when you start having to place objectives, particularly the neoprene markers. So, we'll see. It's something that I want to test out at home anyway. I think that's basically all the movement. We've seen the Demon Prince also leave his perch and come in and set up with the Decimator to protect him. So I think we're now moving into the Psychic phase and the shooting phase, respectively, depending on what's going on. I think we're doing Psychic. Oh no, I think we're going straight to shooting. Yeah, we are definitely in the shooting phase. There's just a conversation around how the Decimators interact with the Lord Discordant and some of the buffs that they're going to be given. Thankfully, we do have 2 veteran players here who can articulate exactly what's going on pretty quickly and pretty easily, so no disagreements there. The guys just got on with it, which is great. Quite a lengthy conversation around how this works, but we do see an attack bike bite the dust. Now, we do have the second Decimator, who's probably going to struggle with line of sight. He might be, depending on range, he might be having to look at that land speeder at the bottom left-hand corner there as the target. It's a bit hard to tell from here. So from the sounds of it, yeah, we are going to actually go with the attack bike, because it is poking out far enough that we can draw line of sight to it from the other Decimator. We've got a CP being spent at the moment for a reroll. And I believe that's the second attack bike gone. The Decimator's already showing they're going to live up to their name throughout the game. It's one of these moments that I wish I had microphones on the players as well. The last 2 players were quite vocal in what was going on. These ones are a bit more reserved at the moment, which is interesting. Now, going into the rest of the day's play, I believe we're in a position where we go for a lunch break straight after this round, which is a 45-minute break. So we will be back for round 3 later this afternoon at 1:30 Western Australian time. So you will be able to catch us a bit later on today once this round's over. But we are going into the first of several breaks throughout the day, because we do have quite a long day today. If you're just joining us, welcome. This is the Ironman Warhammer 40,000 event run by the Toy Soldier Cartel here in Western Australia. And it's 5 games, 2,000 points, 2.5 hours around in one day. So the first game kicked off this morning at 7:30, and the last game for the day I think is due to finish at 9:30 tonight. So it is a very, very long day of games. But it's also a great way to get 5 games in one day. So it's going to give people a lot of time to play. We do have several players running the new Dark Angels Codex. We've got several Death Guard players in the room today. We've got some demons. Sorry, excuse me, everyone.
I've been interrupting people like at the end of turn 2 to get a score update, and then yeah, don't worry about me. Make sure you get your game done, and then I'll come and steal scores.
Come and join me, Ben. Come in, sir. It's always good having a second microphone and headset. So this is he's in orange, so he matches what I normally wear. Turn this mic on for you. There we go.
Excellent.
So camera's up there. Get you in frame. There we go.
All right, sweet. How we doing?
Good, man. Yourself?
Not too bad.
You had to work today, have you?
Yeah.
Oh,
6 a.m. starts. Gotta love it. Missed out on Iron Man. Would have been great to play.
So you working this afternoon, or
No, I'm finished for the day.
Oh, you finished with Jesus Christ! It's
Yep.
10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I know. Half day Saturdays. Fantastic. Great way to miss out on tournaments.
Yeah, definitely.
So, how's this game been going?
So the guys have actually taken their sweet time getting underway, to be fair.
Gotta love that. Iron
what's-
Man.
Yeah,
Hectic
exactly.
schedule.
What's interesting is it's a mirror match from the first round.
Oh, okay.
We had Dark Angels and Chaos on for round 1,
Yeah.
and now we've got Dark Angels and Chaos on for round 2.
I'm guessing vastly different Chaos list, though.
Yeah, look, I mean, the first Chaos list was Emperor's Children, double Terminator Bomb with Keepers of Secrets and...
Connor?
Yeah, Connor's
okay.
army.
Yep.
And the Dark Angels was a Deathwing Ravenwing combo.
Okay.
So this time around, we've obviously got Deathwing, but we also have some Ravenwing, we have some Greenwing. We've kind of got a more varied force for the Dark Angels.
Yep.
And then Rob's Chaos Army is completely different to the last one because we have Decimators, we've still got a Lord Discordant and Cultists, but that's about where the similarities end.
Yep. So this is a list that Rob and I talked about a little while ago. Oh, how good is it? It's the best.
What's the Warlord trait?
Watched. Auto deny, regardless of range.
Once per game?
Once per game, auto deny. Don't have to be within 24. Wherever you want to be, just stop a spell.
Wow.
It is ridiculous. No, you
That
can't.
is that is really good.
It's a free vect. So if you've got an army that relies on like a key spell, like a warp time or anything like that, you can just come in and
Wow.
just go, I'm gonna turn that off.
So Harlequins with Twilight Pathways.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of armies that rely on that certain spell. I think
Yeah,
also
it's-
even things like Chaos Terminators coming down, which are very popular at the moment, using Prescience.
Yep.
So you can turn that
No-
off
no
just to
Prescience?
stop that sort of stuff.
Wow,
Like,
okay, yeah.
Super powerful.
So is that a standard Chaos one, or is that...
No, that's a Dark Angel Warlord trait. One
Oh,
of the
okay.
Dark Angel Warlord traits.
That explains why I haven't seen it yet, because I will admit I got my Dark Angels Codex, had a little ooh and ah at parts of it, and then they went, here's your Drakari book, and I went, okay, I don't care about that
Don't
anymore.
care about that. I'm going to go straight on the Drakari look really interesting.
Yeah, they
like
do.
absolutely.
I've actually got 2 of the book. I've got both the books here this morning with me because I know a few people went, we're not going to get to Games Workshop today to pick them up.
Yep.
But they knew I had them, so they went, can you bring them so we can read them in the lunch break? So they're both here.
I like it.
Um,
But yeah, this Decimator list is something that I spoke to Rob about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I noticed it in the WTC TTS event that's going on at the moment.
Yep.
Funnily enough, because Tom White pushed my stuff in at the ATC with the Lord of Skull version doing the same
Yep.
thing. And it turns out doing that with Mortal Wounds is just as good
Yeah,
in current
just
meta.
absolutely.
Like, it seemed really strong. So I'm excited to see how he goes with this here.
Well, did you see what he named the list for today?
No, I haven't seen
The
it.
Richard Siegler's winning LVO list 2022.
That's great.
So I'm really
Bit
hoping.
of forecasting.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that that's what actually happens. But to be fair, we've got a long way to go before LVO 2022.
Yes,
A lot of Codex
yep.
releases before then.
Yeah, I'm sure this will still be the meta.
I don't think there's any reason Mortal Wounds can't work over a long period of time. But what
No.
I would hope is that we actually get new Chaos Codex before LVO 2022.
That's definitely true.
We hope.
Yeah, I know Mortal Wounds spam definitely seems to be on the up. We're hearing a lot of lists kind of talking about it with things like the Triple Satan builds.
Well, you kind of have to with Inner Circle, Deathwing, and Transhuman in general for Space Marines is so good for those
Yep.
really durable units.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Van Vets in cover
Yep.
with their 1+ save. There's just a lot of things right now that are relying on invols, so if you can bypass that, fantastic.
It's one of the reasons, I was saying it on the last game, that the Drakari book comes at a moment in time where they don't care about transhuman, they don't care about invulnerable saves, they just deal mass poison to you, and they kind of get around the Dark Angels and to a lesser degree the Death Guard durability because they don't care about your toughness, they don't care about your... Like, they just pour fire into
Yeah,
you in
absolutely.
mass volumes. And someone made a comment earlier that it could very well be a situation where the next book being AdMech, I've gone, yeah, AdMech counter Drakari really well. And are we then going to see the Sisters come out being a really good counter to AdMech, and then whatever comes out after, and we're just going to see this snowball of the
That's
next...
an interesting meta.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, when you kind of have that sort of stuff where you've got soft counters to hard counters everywhere,
Yeah.
trying to work out like what's going to be the dominant list within your own meta and then building around that is a very delicate kind of process.
And even dodging matchups at tournaments become really important because
Yeah.
you could rock up with an army and you go, cool, as long as I don't play this or this, I can handle the field. And you could mix one of those up in the first couple of rounds and all of a sudden you're...
Well, I've been trying out a double Dimmick Aaron list lately, as I'm sure a lot
Yeah.
of NIP players have been. That list seems incredibly strong. And then I look at Drakari, with
Yeah,
like a
Nids-
million poison
Nids
shots.
do not
wounding
want
those
Drakari.
things. I want no smoke with that list. Hey, none
No.
at all.
Oh, we got a rules.
Rolls I was getting for this decimator, that's
For Iron Warriors.
yeah, I'm always one CP or shots or damage.
Oh, wow. So that compounds it again. So
Oh,
you
for
get
the decimator?
yeah, for the rerolls from
Yeah.
the Iron Warrior strat for 1 CP. Instead of spending 1 CP for one reroll, he's spending 1 CP and just rerolling everything.
Yeah, so I think that list is basically you got decimators with 3s to hit. You've got Lord Discordant giving them +1 to hit, and also
Yep.
giving them reroll 1s to wound. There then have 6s explode come from somewhere. I'm not quite sure where that is.
Is that Death to the False Emperor? Or is that only combat?
No, it's the one piece that I couldn't quite work out where that was coming from, but in the Lord of Skulls version, 6s were exploding to hit into 2 hits. Then you've got 2+ to wound with reroll 2+ to do mortals.
And they explode on wounds as well, don't they?
And so because of the Corn Herald and the relic that he's got, the 6s to wound explode into a new
Oh,
attack
that's-
sequence.
Yeah, so this was something, there was an infinite loop that was created when this first came out.
Yep.
And they closed the infinite loop, but it still kind of snowballs.
Yes, yeah. So the 6s
Yeah.
to wound will generate a new attack sequence, but that won't then generate a
more.
new attack sequence.
Yeah.
But the 6s to hit from the second attack sequence, I believe, still double into 2 hits.
Yeah, they will. Well, they will still. It's just they can't generate more attacks.
More attacks.
Yeah.
So you end up with a situation where 2s to hit with full rerolls, 2+ to do mortals with the rerolls 1s to wound. It is an insane amount of mortal wounds.
Well, he took off both attack bikes like instantly, essentially.
I'm not surprised by that
No.
at all, to be honest.
And that's through the jink that the Ravenwing get and everything. So
Yeah, no,
Um,
that list seems very interesting. I do think it's probably more of a teams list than a singles, because if you come against someone who can just snipe out the decimators, they'll come out, they'll do some work. They
Yeah.
don't have any character rules, so you
And
can
then-
just shoot them,
and then they just die.
and then the
Yeah.
list just falls apart.
It does certainly rely heavily on the Lord Discordant and those 3 decimators to lift their weight.
Yep, absolutely. But in the right matchup, like if you're playing against, say, Necrons with a lot of warriors that don't have
yeah.
the Silent King to get line of sight, they will just blow through that army.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, the mortal wounds thing is really important as well, because my first thought was, I'll just kill it with Harlequins, and then I went, hang on a minute, how many mortal wounds did I see that do? I don't really want to be there.
Yep, absolutely.
So
So I find Harlequins are an interesting spot because I know you've been running the foot Harlequins for quite a while, and
Yeah.
it seems like the meta is kind of pushing them back to being inside boats because you've got all the mortal wounds, things like Demic Errands feasting on them, Drakari as well.
the Drakari matchup's going to be a really weird one for them, because it's something, having gone through, I spent a bit of time with the book now, there is an argument for witches just being slightly better, cheaper Harlequins, and that's its own issue. Oh, okay.
Excellent.
We've got a specific selection there for the Apothecary being involved in keeping models in range.
But these discussions are really interesting because you can see the meta is constantly evolving and changing, and the way that you need to build your lists is always in flux, and that
It
makes
is.
for a really healthy meta.
It has to be. The last thing you want to do is end up in a situation where we were at the tail end of 7th, where there were about 6 good builds, and that was it.
Yep.
And
That's not a good place to be.
you either had to be an exceptional player to break through that wall, or you had to come up with something so innovative that you essentially created the new meta by adding another list to that pool.
Yep.
And I don't think that's a good place to be, because then you go to a big event with 100 people and you go, well, I know I'm going to have to beat these 5 or 6 armies. And I don't think that's necessarily healthy for the game. But like I say, the fact that Drakari are coming with the tools to beat Dark Angels and Death Guard pretty reliable, well, not reliably, but as a Drakari player, I feel really confident in using them. And looking at the lists here today, I'm kind of going, yeah, like,
You're just looking at people going, tick, yep,
Yep,
that's a
I can-
win,
yep.
that's a win.
look,
I
I
like
mean,
it.
they've always done well against Nids and Demons, because they don't care about the defenses that Nids and Demons have. Poison works really well. The volume's there. Like,
Yeah.
I remember playing them in 5th in a practice game in the lead up to ETC, and I killed, I think it was 5 of the Tervagons in 1 round of shooting,
Good lord.
because I had 250 poison shots a turn
Yep.
and 24 Dark Lances, and it was like, okay, you're just all dead.
Yep.
And, you know, but then if I hit a vehicle army back in the 5th edition, I'd really struggle.
Yeah, I've been in the reverse sweet spot with the NIDs, where a lot of things have rules that explode on vehicles.
Yeah, but
at
not
the
on
moment,
monsters.
But not on monsters,
Yeah.
and it's just been fantastic. So the tables are definitely about to turn for me, unfortunately.
The thing is, Drakari have a really high buy-in to make a good army. The dollars involved in making a good Drakari army, like you're paying 120, 130 points, but you're spending over $100 for that unit. And it's a bit like Genestealer Cult in that regard, where your dollar output for points, there's a, like, Genestealer Cult is still worse, but the parity there will stop a lot of players buying into them heavily. So
Yeah, I definitely don't regret buying like 30 acolytes.
yeah. Oh, I'm in the same boat. I've got like 80 acolytes, and you're left going, Jesus Christ.
Oh God.
But people are going, oh, which spam's going to be the way to do it? And I've gone, cool. What else are you running? Oh, 40 Hellions. Oh, you mean the Hellions that are $50 for 5? Like, all
I
of
will
a
say
sudden,
though, like, I really enjoy the fact that the models that are coming out of the new book that people are saying that are gravitating towards are some of the best models in the range.
Oh, yeah.
So your Incubi, your Mandrakes, your
Hellions,
Hellions, your
yep.
Witches, those are all absolute bangers.
Absolutely.
They've been great for like a really long time, and it's nice to see them actually kind of get their time in the sun.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I've got 40 Hellions sat at home who are finally going, yay,
Wanna
we get,
sell them?
No. Hell no. Hell no. They're getting painted.
I do wonder if that Hellion strat will get changed.
It will. I
because-
cannot believe that the 10 mortal wounds on average they do to an infantry character
Yeah.
is going to be left. I'm assuming it'll be dropped to 1. I think it's 1 CP now anyway. But I'm assuming it'll be capped at 3 or 4 or 5 mortal wounds, because otherwise or there'll be like a -1 to hit characters.
Yeah, it was an interesting one for that because GW has shown a propensity in the new books to scale CP costs.
Yeah.
Where it'll be like in the Necron Codex,
If you do it with this, it's 2. If you do it with this, it's 3. If you do it with
blowing
this,
up
it's 4.
is 3 CP for a Titanic unit,
Yep.
or only 1 if you're not. So having a caveat of like an 11-man unit plus 2 CP for this.
Yep.
And then obviously having the normal caps of 10 mortal wounds tops and -1 to hit against characters.
Yeah.
Those are pretty standard across all stratagems of that ilk. So
The
yeah,
fact
I'm
that this doesn't
surprised-
have any of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems definitely like an oversight. So make use of it while you can.
Well, that's it. I'd say it's on borrowed time. And there's the worst one that I've seen so far actually comes from the campaign book, the Book of Rust. There's a new a warlord trait in there called Competitive Edge.
And what's that one do?
So if obviously it's only for the Cult of Strife Succubus. If she attacks and any of her attacks do not get to the inflict damage stage, so you roll to hit, roll to wound, roll to save.
Yep.
If any of my attacks don't get through all 3 of those, I get another attack.
Oh. Per attack that doesn't?
Yeah.
Or really?
So she starts with 6 attacks. She gets +1 from a combat drug, so she's now 7 attacks. She takes Razor Flails, which gives her 2 attacks per attack, so she's now 14 attacks. Now, if I don't inflict damage with any one of those, I get another attack.
Yeah.
But every time I fight with a Razor Flail, I get 2 attacks. So I actually
pretty
want my first 14 attacks to not do damage, because then I get 28 more attacks.
Holy crap.
And I feel like the doubling up of the Razor Flail there isn't intended.
Yeah.
I feel like that just needs a no, you can't.
So I'm pretty sure the answer to this is no, but
Yeah.
can you combo that with the 6s to hit are an automatic
No.
mortal? Okay, good.
No,
Because
if you could double that up, it'd be broken
that
beyond
would be
belief.
insane. Yeah, okay, cool.
But
Alright, that's good.
she is still strength 4, neg 2, 2 damage.
Okay, yeah.
So, like, when she goes in and fights a 9 wound, like a Demon Prince or something, the Demon Prince just dies.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do to save her.
That reliability.
And because every time you go, oh, cool, I've wounded you 14 attacks, I've wounded you 5 times, I saved 3 of them. Cool, so only 2 of my 14 attacks have gone through. So now I've got 12 attacks back, and if you double it for Razor Flails, which I really don't think the intent is there for it, but in theory, all of a sudden you go, cool, here's 24 more attacks.
That is insane.
It's-
hey.
So bad, and I don't believe that's the intent at all. I feel like doubling up on, if she starts with 14, she can generate
Yeah.
the 14 is still really good. I don't think you can double it again.
Yeah. But that's the kind of general vibe I've been getting from the Drakari Codex is that it is very much a glass hammer.
Oh, yeah.
Like you go in, you
She's
absolutely
T3
nuke
with a 4+
something.
save.
Yeah. And see, I'm okay with like Drakari having this massive output. As long as they don't trade too efficiently, like if there's got to be
Yeah.
some sort of recourse there. And I watched one of the recent Art of War streams where they had Admech versus Drakari.
Oh,
and the
yep.
AdMech absolutely demolished them. They blew them off the table. And it was, if you don't have the right terrain, if you cop a shooting army on the wrong terrain with Drakari, you might just lose the game
Yeah,
before you ever
absolutely.
get a chance to get there.
And
that's a great balancing point, because they should have that fragility if they're also going to be tactical nukes in melee.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the trick, is that I think that the Drakari Codex is actually won or lost with the table in some cases. And I think there'll be tournaments around the world where they won't have like 4 to 6 line of sight blockers or obscuring, and all of a sudden you're going to see Drakari armies get swept off the table turn 1.
Yep.
And then there will be other tournaments where, like I was looking at the WTC format, where they've got 8 to 10 line of sight blockers.
Yeah, train
and
everywhere.
I just keep looking at that going, cool, 30 Incubi, 40 Hellions, job done. Like,
The best thing for like Drakari players is that the tournament results that Games Workshop see, it doesn't filter by how much terrain you have on the board.
No.
So Drakari, if they have a real just even 50% win rate because you've got good tables and bad tables,
it's going to be fine.
they're never going to get nerfed. They're
No.
never going to get touched. Drakari players just be like, yes, all the guys that have got in the right area. No, that'd be fair.
But it is going to be an interesting one. I was saying to Courtney when they've got a ringer running today, because they've had someone drop out very late notice, and I said they said you want to play, and I said, can I use my new Drakari book? And they went, no, you can't. And I went, well, here we are. So
You got to ask the question. You definitely got to ask the question.
oh, look, to be fair, the opportunity to stream the games and check out some of the lists and have chats to other players in the community is a really good one. So
No, absolutely, it's good.
and
Should we touch on what's happening in the game, or we know what we're up to?
Well, I'm going to hazard a guess and say it's Rob's turn 2 based on what's going on. Rob went first. We've obviously seen one of the decimators move sort of straight up into that sort of central objective on the crater, and then we've got the other one moved across to the left onto Shane's own objective, which I talked about earlier in the stream, if you want to go back and rewatch why those objective markers even exist. Top left-hand corner.
Oh yeah. It's good to see them getting some airtime.
It was a compromise.
Yep.
We were running 50% objective secured markers and 50% Toy Soldier Cartel, and when Shane came, he said, I'm the manager of the venue.
Yep.
I want to put at least one down. I said, well, you can't just put one down, so we're going to have to go 2, 2, and 2.
I
So
like it. Pull rank.
That's what we've done.
Yep. Yep.
So
they are fantastic.
There's certainly a talking point for your opponent, that's for sure.
Yep, that's it. The opponent does have the right to refuse, but so far I haven't come across anyone.
No, likewise. I've got a set of them for myself at home that sit on my gaming table, which I've had a few people come around, having not seen them, maybe not being tournament players themselves, and go, what is that?
Yep.
You go, well, here's the story.
The real problem is that that was the entry level for this. So if anyone wants to try and one-up this next year, I'm kind of scared to see what that's going to look like.
Yeah, that is true. I've got a few good photos of Shane, but I've even had Connor, who was on the stream in the last round, saying to me, I've got this photo of Shane, can we do objective markers for these? And I've gone, calm down, it's all good. Like, you've already got a set, you don't need more.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
so, how did you find commentating the Dark Angels last game?
It was an interesting game, actually, because I don't know whether Connor did it intentionally or not, but he actually managed to drive the demons straight up the middle and form a wedge and split the Raven Wing from the Death Wing.
Oh.
And then he was able to wheel around, kill the majority of the Raven Wing, and left the Death Wing kind of pushed back into the top left-hand corner of the board, and basically outscored him during the mid-game, so that the Death Wing couldn't, so Connor maxed out, but the Death Wing couldn't max their secondaries because he'd killed everything that could score scramblers, and so...
that's an interesting point. Like, I'm keen to see where the evolution of the Dark Angels goes, because I played against them for the first time a couple of nights ago. Pete using his list, and it was the same sort of thing where when you've got the Raven Wing and the Death Wing elements, killing the Raven Wing and the fast things, you then get to run rings around what's left.
Exactly.
So if you see some of the team events kind of lists that are coming out at the moment where they're running 3 to 4 Terminator bricks, and they completely eschew all the Raven Wing stuff and just go for pure unkillability, those things park themselves on objectives. You've got no easy targets to pick off.
Yeah.
You don't outscore that list, so I do think that it might start to push towards that rather than this more balanced version that we're seeing at the moment, because it does open you up to getting wedged and picked apart.
I think
that.
The part of the issue last game was we had what was essentially 800 points of Terminators and characters parked on that top left objective, and they deployed their turn 1 and basically didn't move. And
Dark Angels.
Yeah. And for me, I feel like had he been willing to move and deployed them centrally behind that ruin and then in turn one sort of advanced into the midfield where the two objectives were. You've then got Azrael, Ezekiel, the Ancient, the Apothecary, and a brick of 10 Terminators stood in the midfield across two objectives.
Yep.
And at that point, it puts pressure on Connor to then either engage them, which is not something you necessarily want to do with those Terminators, or try and go around them, at which point the Raven Wing are there to pick you apart.
Yep.
And I feel like the deployment last game is probably what hurt the Dark Angels the most.
Okay. That makes sense. So one thing I do like about Shane's list is the inclusion of the infiltrators. And I think a lot of people probably would have heard, I think it was Adam Camilleri talking on one of the podcasts about his list and why you run the infiltrators. And the reason being is that you can have them on that backfield objective. They can put out their aura of no deep strikes. And that allows you to really control what comes in to stop that Dark Angel secondary. I forget the name of it. But putting an entire Terminator brick back there to do it, they'll hold it, but you're also then... You're giving up so many points attritionally. Like, if you're not committing, say, a 400-point Terminator brick to the actual fight...
Exactly.
You're playing so many points down against your opponent, they'll pick you apart. Infiltrators do that role for a lot cheaper, which is why I'm a fan of Shane's list.
Yeah. So we've got some couple of comments here. There better be orcs at the tournament.
There is.
I was going to say, I think
buggy
there's
list just behind us.
Yes.
Yep.
The advance and charge that can be bumped to turn 1 activation is pretty rough.
For the Drukhari. Yep.
Yeah.
For the Blackheart, that's definitely true. People have been theorizing you could have Mandrakes deploying with their infiltration on turn 1. If they're Blackheart, you can advance and charge if you go first and get in some funky places.
Well, they don't get Blackheart though.
They do if they're in a realm space raid detachment.
No, they don't.
Because it specifically says that I think Blackheart states that
I got the book.
Blades for Hire gain the Blackheart detachment ability of counting it as +1. Mandrake's Blade for Hire because
let's have a
Scourges
look.
and oh my god, so good. No, Scourges and Incubi definitely are.
Thank you, Games Workshop, for giving me this early.
Yeah, that is awesome. It's got that new book smell as well.
It does, doesn't it?
Oh.
Where are we? Blackheart. If a real space raid detachment includes Kabbalah Blackheart Archon until the end of the battle, all Blades for Hire unit have the Power from Pain ability. It also treat the current round as 1 higher. So...
And Blades for Hire is Incubi, Scourges, and I think
Mandrakes. Yeah, I think you're right.
If you're in that realm space raid, which is already quite nice,
yeah,
they are. Yep. So you can get Mandrakes getting advance and charge on turn 1 off their infiltrate.
Yes, you can.
Which is pretty spicy. You just got to hope you roll first. 50-50.
I was going to say, if you don't go first, they're probably dead because they're T3 with a 5-up save.
Oh yeah. If you've got some nice, I think most 9th edition terrain tables these days have some good middle of the board ruins. So it lets you deploy somewhat conservatively with your infiltrate and still threaten that turn 1 if you want to go in and they misdeploy and put something juicy at the front.
And the fact is, they move 8, they advance D6.
They move 8?
Yeah, they move 8.
Okay.
So it's basically 3d6 plus 8.
Okay.
Which is pretty brutal.
That's fine.
And they're 3 attacks base.
Their guns are assault, so they can still advance.
Yeah, but did you notice what their guns do?
The mortal wounds?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're quite spicy. I think people will end up taking a couple units of 5 in most lists just for the scenario pressure that it gives you.
Hooray for buying 2 boxes of metal ones back in 5th edition.
That is an absolute win, hey. They're such nice models and only available in Finecast.
I had 5 in Finecast and went, screw these. Sold them.
Just leave them in 22-degree heat for a day and they'll just melt. Yep.
No, I actually got 2 boxes of 5 in metal years back in 2010, 2011 or whenever it was. And they didn't get painted up until maybe 18 months ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah, right.
When I went, I really want to put these on the table. They do mortal wounds. And they've only got base colours on them, mind you. I think they got contrasted, but that was about it.
I'm trying to convince myself that's the play with NIDS. I'm like, if I just paint these these models that are bad now,
they'll be good
when they
soon.
get a book at some point in the next 10 years, I'm sure they'll be good.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
No, I think Shane's list at this point in time, you can see those fiends are still lurking down the left hand. There's a couple of them left. And it was something I was saying before you joined me, is those fiends were originally deployed on the right flank behind that shipping container. And then turn 1, they basically had moved and advanced all the way down behind those ruins.
Yep.
Rob left a couple of them out the front just to be on the objective. And
on turn 1?
On turn 1. Obviously, at that point in time, you're in a position where I now have to shoot them because otherwise I'm giving up a primary to you, which is going to draw fire away from the 3 decimators that have just walked out as well to lay down fire. And
good plays.
It was a really sensible thing to do. It did cost him 3 fiends, but at the same time, the decimators did their thing, and there's still 3 decimators walking around on the table.
I feel like as the player who's going first, Rob went first?
Yeah, Rob went first.
Yeah, so with the change to the second turn mechanic and scoring at the end of the game, pretty much you're always going to be able to get a 15 at the end of the game. So
in theory, yeah.
All things being equal, the player going first now does have to try and make some plays to get a 15 at some point. So something like that, where the fiends go out, maybe you get lucky with some invul saves, you get a 15 early on, that counters your opponent's last turn 15 they're more than likely going to get, and then you're back to just kind of duking it out on secondaries.
Well, the fact that Rob took the ones off the objective, I assume means he hit a point where he went, you know what, it's more important for me to keep a couple of fiends and have them to be there to pressure sort of turn 2, turn 3 than it was for him to leave them on the objective and then take potentially more fire and lose the whole squad.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the way that Shane has his Terminator bricks spread out at the moment, he's obviously trying to keep the majority of them hidden from the decimators. So he's got 2 touching the objective, and if those 2 were to go down, then the Apothecary kind of comes in, and you're not really losing that much.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, if he's going to be keeping the Terminators hidden for most of the game from the decimators, when they do finally come out, the fiends become very important for being able to lock them down while they're strung out, because you won't get the volume of attacks into them.
Absolutely.
And that allows the decimators to then get another turn in there and really whittle them down when they do want to come out to play and push home that scenario advantage. It's an interesting one. The decimators are really forcing the Terminators to kind of hide at the back there.
Well, if you look at the Dark Angels now, with those infiltrators dead, the attack bike's dead, he's basically 14 inches from his own board edge, maybe 12 to 14.
Yep.
And
he's been pushed right back.
And the Chaos, I mean, don't get me wrong, the Chaos aren't much further forward on their own board edge, but it feels certainly more like the Chaos have control of that mid board, because those 3 decimators essentially have line of fire to the entire mid table, and you step out into that crossroads in the middle of the board and you're pretty much done for.
Yeah, this is also, it just twigged on me that this is Vital Intelligence. I was looking at it and I'm like, why are they all slightly off center? But no, Vital Intelligence, this is a hold 2, hold 3, hold more mission. So Shane at the moment is obviously holding his 1 in the bottom left behind the ruin. Those Terminators need to stay on that bottom middle one in order for him to get a 5.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really have the option to remove those 2 and protect the unit from the rest of the shooting. They have to stay there if he wants to get any primary at all. So with Rob holding the 2 in his own, the 2 in the top left, and his home 1, he's in a very strong position at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the weaknesses of the Dark Angels, is that they don't have the ability to spread out on these 2-3 more missions that easily. And if you can really punish them, if you can put a credible threat like the Decimator shooting out there, they're going to struggle to really put anything of value that won't get blown off by mortal wounds.
Oh, look, when you're dumping 400 points into those Terminator bricks, you really need them to be out doing work.
Yep.
And this list kind of denies that, because you're in a position where you have to be able to engage those decimators early and rapidly. And if you can't, then they're just going to punish you turn after turn.
The melter bikes going down turn 1 to shooting seems like a possible game-deciding mistake there. If they're hiding behind the ruins and they can pop out and threaten the decimators, you need those things alive. Because you don't have that many things that can get after the decimators while they're sitting back at their 24-inch range.
Well, to give him some credit, he did deploy them. So where the Ravenwing Apothecary is where they were originally deployed. And then they got a scout move before the game started, which brought them up to the left, behind that sort of L-shaped ruin on the left-hand side of the board.
In the center? Yes. Okay.
Just off center.
Yep.
And because of Rob's deployment of the 2 decimators, which were basically deployed centrally in the mid board behind the top ruin, they both moved to the left. And because he hadn't tucked them in far enough into the ruin, he was able to draw a line of sight to them.
Yep.
And
that's
punish them.
Smart deployment by Rob. So he's identified that the melter bikes, he needs to draw a line of sight on them and to nuke them wherever they get to hide. So he's deployed, so he's able to walk out and try and get that. So
well, the other thing to remember is there's still 2 20-man bloodletter bombs to come.
Oh. I did not know that.
That's the other part of Rob's list. Is obviously he's got the it's not a Bloodmaster, I think it's called, the Khorne. demon character.
one? Yep, Bloodmaster.
And then there's 2 20-man Bloodletter bombs to come.
Okay.
So
That is actually very interesting because do
yeah.
you see them charging, or do you see them just coming down to protect space?
Well, they've got that 3d6 as well if he wants it. He's got the CP to do it.
Yep.
Now, we've obviously got those Terminators now moving up and being supported by the Raven Wing and all the rest of it on that objective just off to the right of the centre.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's actually a pretty sensible decision because he's only going to take fire from 1, maybe 2 Decimators. I think
Yep.
the third one's either going to be out of range or struggle with line of sight.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to minimise the incoming fire, but at the same time, he's at least a turn away from charging that Decimator with those Terminators.
Yes. So
At least a turn, and you'd almost consider overwatching that Decimator as well.
Yep, I would for sure. Is this a turn where you would see the Chaplain go in and try and nuke one of these?
I feel like you almost have to, don't you?
Yep, I think so.
I mean, Rob's obviously holding the Bloodletter bombs now because we're into to Shane's turn.
Mm-hmm.
So we're assuming we're going to get 40 Bloodletters turn 3.
Yep.
Now, at the moment, there's a nice big gap in the mid-board where he could just dump 20 of them and pretty much charge what he felt like.
Yep.
There's also a risk if you look at that bottom left objective. There's the land speeder, then the objective, and we've got those characters behind that ruin. If those characters move like it looks like they are, which is, oh god, you've now got a lovely big space for 20 more Bloodletters.
Yep. And again, the low numbers of the Dark Angel army here really kind of opening gaps for him to be able to take advantage of them. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have the models to screen. They can't afford
Look,
to.
look at that. You've now got this massive space where you can flood it with Bloodletters.
Yep.
And you can potentially then get a massive multi-charge off on pretty much whatever you feel like.
I think the Chaplain here is pretty critical what happens this turn, because if the Chaplain doesn't go in, I would almost be tempted to use the Bloodletters to come down to create a wall between the Decimators and the Terminators, because they're the thing they're going to win you the game, is that if you can just keep whittling them down with the mortal wounds.
Absolutely.
If you come down, and also I think one of the issues here with Shane having moved up the way he does is that he's blocked himself off from Auspex scanning. So if the Bloodletters come down to the left-hand side of the ruin they're currently in, the Stormbolter shots from the guys that have them
would normally do work.
would do a lot of work, and you might dip them below that 20 block where the Bloodletters then lose the extra attack, I think it is. So you're not able to Auspex scan them. They can then charge you if they want to and tie you up, but honestly, I think they would probably just come down and occupy space. And if you delay for 2-3 turns getting the Decimators...
There's no need to commit them.
No.
The thing is, you could deploy both blocks, use the first block to protect the Decimator on the right and kind of box in those Terminators. And then deploy the other blob on the left near the land speeder to look at forcing the objective, because there's only a handful of models behind that ruin plus the land speeder. If you drop the Bloodletters on that side, spend the CP for the 3d6 charge, and go in and clear that left-hand corner with those Bloodletters, you almost win the game right there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that for sure. Is it a CP for 3d6, or do you pay a CP pre-game for the Banner of Blood?
I think you pay it for the pre-game for the Banner of Blood, which I'm 90% sure Rob took, because if he didn't, he deserves to be punched.
Absolutely.
Let's have a look. That's why I put it in the chat. Let's have a look. Banner of Blood, Banner of Blood. Yep,
perfect.
They're both there with Blood Reapers, the icons, and the instruments.
Yep. All right.
So that is not good if that's the way that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, so again, smart list kind of building here, because Rob's got a very powerful shooting base and he's supplementing it with versatile melee infantry. So they can come down, they can really nuke something if there's a good target, or they can come down like we're talking about, blocking out space, they're obsec, they'll cap objectives. Great, it's a great list. It's a very interesting list.
So there was a question in the chat there asking us, is there anything scoring the top right objective? Yes, there is. Unfortunately, because of the shape of the ruins, you can't see them. There is a squad of 10 Chaos Cultists, which we can see from here, just on the table here, tucked into that ruin, that are basically towing into that 3-inch.
There's also a squad of 10 cultists behind the top left ruin. I'm not sure if they're on the table or...
No, they are. They're there.
Okay, cool.
But I think he's just sort of sitting them there in the event that Decimator
goes down.
He's now got another unit can move over there.
Yep.
And there's obviously still the Reaper chain cannons behind the midfield as well. There's a Havoc squad of 4 Reaper chain cannons.
I have no idea what those things do.
Like 8 shots each.
Okay.
But only 1 damage, but they're basically a heavy bolter.
Okay. Will they benefit from the whole chain that we've been talking about with the decimators, with the
I
sixes
believe
to hit
they
and
could
sixes
because
to
they've
wound?
got all the required keywords, so they may do, yeah.
Perfect.
Which gives you another option if you start losing decimators.
Yeah,
You've then got a
absolutely.
fallback plan.
Yep.
So there's a lot of synergy going on here, which
There is.
I-
It's cool to see something that was I thought was a fairly. I got dumpstered by Tom at.
If it makes you feel better, Tom just got dumpstered with his Chaos list by a double Chiron list.
Oh, that does actually make me feel better. Yes,
Actually,
go the Tyranids.
he didn't get totally dumpstered, but he did get beaten, so
Yep.
we'd take it
Okay.
that way.
But yeah, that when I saw that tech and how that all came together, it did cross my mind if anyone would do anything else with it. So it's pretty cool to see some 6 months later or whatever it's been that it's now showing up again in a wildly different list.
Well, there was a version of this list with the corn combo on, I want to say it was a conversion beamer variant back in early 8th.
Okay.
Because it had a built-in exploding mechanic as well, so you could kind of explode and explode and explode again.
Yep.
I think I'm trying to
I
remember.
feel
it
like
now.
this is what Chaos is predicated on. It's just like having some like really weird niche rule or keyword, and all of a sudden you're doing like 40 hits from 5 attacks.
Yep.
Yep.
But you know what? When you get as many rules as you do, I mean, I was talking to someone about the Deathwing specifically, and so your Deathwing need to be nerfed, and I went, well, I think Inner Circle's fine. What I think they should do is go an infantry model pays 5 points to have Inner Circle, and if it's a character, it pays 10 points or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Because the fact that a standard Terminator squad is the same price as a Deathwing Terminator squad, and the Deathwing Terminators get Inner Circle, like transhuman for free,
Yep.
makes me feel like there needs to be. I don't think it
absolutely.
needs to be nerfed. I think they need to turn around and make you pay for it.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think there's a massive difference between your bog standard, just run-of-the-mill Deathwing, also like Blade Guard,
Yep.
and then Blade Guard that have permanent transhuman. And the easiest way to balance that without nerfing other codexes is simply to pay points for it. The same way that they've been very smart with things like Apothecary upgrades, Chapter Master upgrades, Master Archon, where that thing is now baked into a points cost rather than a CP.
Yep.
And so you pay the points for it out of your list. Just do the same thing with this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, someone said, 5 points a model, that's too cheap. I went, well, no, over a 5-man Terminator squad, that's 25 points. Over a 10-man, that's 50 points.
Yep.
And then if you go, cool, every one of my... if you go a Deathwing army, like this detachment here, you've got... What? You've got the 10-man squad, the 5-man squad, you've got 2 command squads.
All of a sudden you're losing the infiltrators.
Ezekiel has it as well, so he'd be paying for it. The Ravenwing Apothecary has it, so he'd be paying for it. So all of a sudden, what's that? 50, 60, so that's probably 100 plus points gone. And you're right, you're losing the infiltrators and probably then some.
Yep. Even if you were to just take like the characters, I don't mind so much having it because I think it fits with the theme of them being like
Super special.
That's
Yeah.
their thing. Yeah. It's more so it's the shared units across other codexes that I feel is a little bit off. But even if it was a 5-man Terminator brick, and that's 25 points. That 25 points is a unit of servitors, and servitors are extremely useful for doing things that actually win you the games.
Even if it was just the Terminators and the command squad in this list, that's 19 Terminators. At 5 points a model, like, that's 95 points.
Yep, that's a lot. That's a lot.
And you start going, hang on, is that now worth it? And you might go, well, okay, what about 3 points a model? It's still... Something has to give. There's something from the list that has to be dropped.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like that the fact you would have to make that active choice is good.
Yeah.
Because at the moment you don't. You just go,
and I understand
cool,
GW wants to kind of make these things more streamlined, but you could also have it where it's like a 5-man unit pays 10 points for transhuman, a 10-man unit pays 20 points for transhuman. Just make it
Just
a
a
fixed
flat
cost,
number.
so you're not having to add it in and work out what's going on, but you know if you're taking Deathwing, that's how much extra it costs you.
Well, it'd be easy to say that, and I would already hear complaints. I want to make a 6-man. Why should I pay 20 points when a 5-man's only 10 points? We'll take a 5-man.
Yeah. Because you're already incentivized to take 5 mans, so
I wouldn't have a problem with that going. Yeah, just having it in their points value that goes Deathwing or Terminator.
Hold up, we've missed something very big here. There's no Decimator on the top right hand side.
He's dead now.
He is dead. the chaplain is still sitting there as well. So while we were waxing lyrical, something very important's happened here.
Rob, what killed the Decimator? What killed the Decimator?
Oh,
Beautiful. Okay, that is a very
Plasma
good
and Scepter, overcharge, reroll everything, and Weapons of the Dark Age. Okay, yeah, that'll do it.
That is a great combo. So Weapons of the Dark Age is still the +1 damage.
Yep.
So we're looking at flat
Four damage Plasma
flat
Receptors.
4 plasma receptors.
Is it 4 or 3? Are they base 1 or base 2? I forget.
They're Ooh.
Thankfully,
Oh,
I have
iPad.
everything here.
If they go up to flat 3, I feel like I think you're right. I think there might be 1 going to 2 when you overcharge. I think it's the macro plasma incinerator that goes from 2 to 3.
Where am I? I want Space Marines because they're a standard unit, aren't they? Inceptor. So the Plasma Exterminator, yeah. So they go to damage 3.
Damage 3. That is fantastic.
So
I'm going to guess that a Decimator probably has somewhere in the vicinity of 10 to 11 wounds.
with six D3 shots at Strength 8, Neg 3, Flat 3, with full rerolls because of Ezekiel.
Yep.
And the Decimator, because again, as much as people poo-poo this app, it's actually pretty good.
No, it's actually pretty good. I've been using it as a reference now. It does, like, if you want to do a quick search reference for a data sheet, it's a lot faster than going into something like Battlescribe, creating a new roster to look at one unit. So I've been using it quite a lot as well.
Oh, look, I mean, the code thing, even if you're not paying for the subscription, the code thing is quite useful.
Yep. Well, that is a great pickup from Shane. To drop one of the Decimators in that top corner and not have to send off the Chaplain.
Decimator is T7, 12 wounds, 3 up armor. I'm assuming it'll have a demon save somewhere down here. It is demonic, so it'll have a 5 up.
Yep.
And the Master of Possessions in the list is over on the other side, so he can't be getting the invulnerable boost from him.
Okay, nice.
So,
yep.
yeah, those Plasma Inceptors probably, even without the Weapons of the Dark Age, may have done it. But I think... hang on, I can look. I've got the thing in my hand. From memory, it's not just +1 damage, it's also +1 to wound.
Surely not. That sounds exceedingly strong. It is Space Marine though, so I'm never really that surprised.
Weapons of the Dark Age. It's just add 1 to the damage characteristic.
Okay, cool.
So
that will pick up, because I think Shane's only running a 3-man, but that 3-man is like very versatile, easy to hide, pop out when you need to, and just pick up things like that.
Well, 6 D3 shots is averaging, what's that, 12 shots with full rerolls to hit and full rerolls to wound. They're hitting on 3s with reroll, wounding on 3s with reroll, and then it's got a 5 up invulnerable and flat 3 damage. It's probably not going to survive that.
No,
and
at all.
as is testament to the fact it's not there anymore.
Yep. So the interesting thing is that now that we know that there's Inceptors there, that means that Deathwing unit is actually a lot smaller than it looks. There's probably about 4 Terminators in there, and the 3 Inceptors are sitting behind them.
Yeah, I can't see from where we're sat, sadly.
So I think the Inceptors are the slightly yellow-looking ones at the bottom. And it looks like there's 4 Terminators.
There's maybe 4 Terminators there,
Yeah, so that Apothecary is going to have to start doing work. At which point, you probably do send the Bloodletters in. When it's only a small unit like that.
Well, even if you can catch and kill those Plasma Inceptors with the Bloodletters and then lose 20 Bloodletters in exchange, I feel like that's at this point in the game, I feel like that's an okay exchange.
I agree. I think
you've also still got those 2 Fiends down the side of that building.
Yep.
And they might be a great way of taking Overwatch fire from those Plasmas, or
the big thing there is if the Bloodletters do drop down in line of sight of the Plasma Receptors, that is the easiest Auspex scan of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's a real concern. It might be one of those things where you drop down out of line of sight, you charge the Terminators, and you pile into the Plasma Receptors. And then just don't engage the whole unit. Just kind of tag them off to the side, limit what they can do. And then the Fiends could even come out and sit on the objective at the bottom there with a little bit more safety and see what happens. So I feel like Shane at the moment is very spread out. Where he's sitting on that bottom right-hand objective, realistically, he's not going to be leaving those 2 objectives for the rest of the game. He can't make a push into the top right-hand corner. He doesn't have the models.
So those Havocs with chain cannons coming out could be a bad thing. I mean, the Plasma Inceptors are still Gravis, so they're still T5, 3 wounds. They're not easy kills.
No.
But, throw enough mud at a wall and some of it sticks eventually.
Yep, absolutely.
And let's face it, if he kills 2 of the 3, that's enough of a success.
Yep.
Because at that point, are you really going to spend CP to give Weapons of the Dark Age to 1 Plasma dude, unless it's the most vital of scenarios?
The dream scenario here is that we have one Plasma Receptor to die and the other one left on 1 wounds. The Apothecary can get work.
Yep.
If the Apothecary can get them back up to full and the Inceptors can fly out weapons again and drop another Decimator, all of a sudden that's a really big swing in this game.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that at the moment, that's not good.
No, that's not good.
That Lord Discordant is probably going to be the end of that Apothecary.
Yep. I think Is it the chaplain that we're seeing that's sitting there in front of the Lord Discordant, or is that the apothecary?
The apothecary's on the bike just in front of the Lord Discordant.
So is there I thought there was a bike chaplain on this list. I might have been thinking of something else.
I think it's a jump pack, actually, in this list.
Okay.
Let's double-check that for you. Master of Sanctuary with a jump pack.
Okay, cool.
So
he's probably hiding around there somewhere as well.
Looking at the from the top-down camera, I'm assuming that you've got the apothecary at the front, and then it looks to be the chaplain, and then Ezekiel and the support stuff, the ancient behind that.
Yep.
Because Ezekiel is still on a 25mm base.
Yes.
And the ancient,
looks so weird.
And the ancient is at the very back of the string from the looks of it.
Yeah. I wonder if that ancient is actually within range to give the -1 damage to either of the 2 Deathwing units that are left.
Well, looking at the Deathwing unit that's there's a model basically at the center of that objective. The objective, 3 inches. Yeah, maybe.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close.
He's probably enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, do you think maybe the chaplain should have still gone in last turn and tried to pick up a second decimator?
I think that the problem you've got is the chaplain, when he was deployed centrally, he obviously had that opportunity to leapfrog, and didn't. He kind of stayed with the Terminators, and because he is, Rob took Assassinate as one of his secondaries.
Okay.
So that obviously plays a part in that decision, because are you willing to trade a Decimator for 3 victory points?
It's very layered, that one, because
yeah, it is,
the Decimator could lose you the game by staying alive and continue to deal the mortal wounds.
But at the
you also then set the line of engagement back, so if the chaplain goes in and kills that Decimator, that Lord Discordant will pick him up in return, but it also means the Discordant is now back over his side of the board.
Yeah.
Where the Discordant is now, he's going to be dealing with your characters, which gives real estate for the Bloodletters to come in, for the Decimators to move up.
The problem is, though, that you also had those Reaper chain cannons parked near the Decimator, so if your chaplain had come up, there's every chance you trade the chaplain by still losing the apothecary to the Lord Discordant while they just gun down the chaplain with mass fire.
I feel like the Dark Angels are tanky enough to survive
Here come
whatever
the
whatever the autocannons are doing, or the Reaper chain cannons.
Yeah.
It's the mortal wounds that they really need to worry about. So I think in this matchup,
There's still 4 Fiends?
maybe
There are still
5?
4.
There's a lot there.
There were 5 to start, and there's definitely 3 or maybe 4 there now, which is really bad.
Do you think he's going after the Ancient?
Well, that -1 damage feels like it needs to go. So if you can pick up the Ancient and tag the 2, like at that point you might as well just go at all the characters, to be fair.
What have we got here?
What is being deployed?
They look like a unit of cultists.
Yep, they are.
Okay, so most of it
So strategic reserves.
Perfect. And again, a great feature of the list, having those little units that can come in when you've cleared out a flank. The Fiends will tie up, you'll have the Bloodletters come in, that Deathwing unit and the surrounding characters are going to be like fighting their way out of chaff till the end of the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
And your cultists are going to be sitting on objectives, getting you those 15s for hold more every turn.
Well, there's Bloodletters, there's a bucket of Bloodletters just come down.
It's a big bucket as well.
So, we've got a slight delay between the 2 screens. So this is what's happening in real life. That's what the stream is seeing.
Okay, I've been watching this one, so I'm looking at the wrong one.
It's all right. I actually feel like it's better to watch the big screen, to be fair. But it does lead to some interesting commentary, because you can sort of be...
I'm going to be out of whack with what I've been saying with what's been happening.
About 10 seconds.
Okay, cool. All right.
That's okay.
I'll watch the other one. I should have asked those questions when I sat down.
That's all right. But it does make some interesting conversations, because as we can see right now, they're trying to plot out exactly where the Bloodletters can land. And Shane moving that land speed, even though he only moved it about 4 or 5 inches in his last movement phase, has actually helped him, because because of the characters where they're positioned and then where the land speeder is, he's actually shut down that middle deployment zone that Rob had very briefly there.
And I know it's little things like this that really help when it comes to tournament games, is like maximizing your advantages. So there's a bodyguard, obviously there's 2 bodyguard Terminators that are hiding in that bottom left-hand ruin.
Yep.
If they're hard up against that ruin, and then you're at the extent of your 3 inches from those bodyguard, that allows your character to maximize like its control over the game and where it can shoot, what it can see, while also protecting deep strike zones. It's little things like that. Like if he was lazy with his movement and he was sitting back a couple of inches, all of a sudden 20 Bloodletters are popping down there. Yep. Being on top of those little things makes a massive difference in your level of tournament play. Well,
the Bloodletters are now being strung out behind the Lord Discordant up towards the other objective, which is smart, because there's nothing on that objective anymore, because both of those Decimators have basically spent a turn redeploying to try and get a better angle on those Terminators.
Yep, absolutely.
It'll be... so what I'm assuming we'll see here is a string that runs back to at least that first objective. The question is, where does the second one land?
Yeah, and is he looking to charge this turn, or is he just doing occupying the space and trying to cordon off areas?
See, I feel like if you're going to use them to control objectives, why would you not just deploy one unit in that top left, control both objectives with the one unit, because nothing stops you doing that anymore, because it's done by model, not by unit.
Mm-hmm.
So you could basically flood those top 2 left objectives with 20 bloodletters, and then use the second one aggressively to either choose to dig out the Terminators by deploying them on the right flank near the sort of in between the ruins and the shipping container, or you can deploy them on the left flank and look to sweep down and clear the land speeder on those Terminators.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he's going to do with these ones now, and if that second unit is coming down.
Well, this is turn 3, so it's make or break now.
Oh, okay, yeah, absolutely.
So it looks like he's, based on where I've just seen the bucket placed on the live screen, he is going to deploy them to try and dig those Terminators out.
I feel like that's been my major contribution to the meta, is that I bring my entire army to a tournament in Tupperware containers, and it actually makes things so much easier, because you're like, this is my 30 termagants, this is my other 30 termagants.
Yeah, here are my buckets of termagants.
Yeah, it makes it easy. Just deploy the buckets. That's what it's all about.
Look, to be fair, you have yet to deploy a dustpan and brush at a tournament. I had that happen. happen. No, as a TO, I watched a player do that at an event I was running.
Wow.
The first time we went down to Albany, one of the guys rocked up with a NID army. It was iridescent green. And I mean, like highlighter green. It was bright.
Yeah. That's what I'm aiming for with my NID. So.
And, yours have nothing on this. This was fluorescent.
Awesome.
And he must have... We were playing, I think it was 1,500 points the first time we went down, but he still deployed like 200 gaunts. And
strong. I like it.
His opponents rolled out the attacks. I killed 27 gaunts. And I watched him grab a dustpan and brush out, because they were rowed up in lines. And he went 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, scoop. And just scooped up these 3 rows in the dustpan and brush and chucked them in a tub. And I've just gone, oh my God. And he's gone, that was about 27. I've gone... About? And he's gone, yeah, look, I mean, they're roughly in rows of 10, so I take 3 rows, that'll be fine. Just gone.
Jesus.
Okay.
Like, that's probably not the right play for a tournament, but that's awesome.
Look, I mean, this is obviously, this goes back 5 years now, with the guys in Albany having not really played the guys in Perth before, so it was kind of a bonding experience with everyone going, that might be the coolest thing I've ever seen in this tournament.
That's amazing, hey.
So
I got to step up my game. I thought my Tupperware was good, but no, the dustpan and brush.
Dustpan and brush.
Yeah, that's where it's at. That's the new meta.
So we are seeing those bloodletters drop in, although he has placed them down in the bottom right-hand corner.
That's interesting. So do you reckon we see the Auspex scan here?
You've got, what, 4 Stormbolters? And that's assuming he has...
Well, from the Plasma Inceptors. Because it's going to trigger the blast rule. So you're looking at 6 shots, so it's 18 shots.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's 18 shots. Are they still benefiting from the rerolls from Ezekiel?
They should do, yeah, because it'll last until the next psychic phase, I assume.
So
hang on, the most important question.
Shane, you got any CP left?
1 CP left. Just asking. No, I'm just asking. It's all good.
We're commentating. We're trying to get information.
We're just getting information. We're commentating. We're getting information.
Okay.
I think that shafts him with only 1 left. I'm going to have a look now.
Yeah, no, that's actually massive. So, again, another huge part of tournament gaming is CP management, and especially in 9th edition. Like, you really need to have a good idea, like a roadmap of what you're going to spend your CP on. And you've got to be flexible with that roadmap.
Absolutely.
But you really need to know, like, okay, if there's bloodletters coming down, I need to have a certain number of CP for Auspex scan, which in this case
is 2.
Yep. So that is a huge swing, because those bloodletters can come down with impunity. If those 18 shots from 3 Plasma Inceptors, you might pick up half the unit of bloodletters.
If they get rerolls, you're going to pick up 2/3 of it, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, they got the 5-up invul, so...
Yeah, but if you're hitting on 3s rerolling, wounding on 2s rerolling, with 18 shots, you're probably picking up
you get 10 to 12
to 15 if you're lucky.
Yep. So even anyway, so 10 to 15 on the low to high end, that unit is absolutely crippled. They'll fleet a morale. You might end up with like 3 bloodletters left. They're not going to charge in. So
No, and
CP management
they-
is a huge part of the game.
At that point, they even bounce off Terminators, and the Terminators just punch the
Pick them up.
crap out of
Yeah,
them.
they just pick them up.
Whereas 20 of them, you start going, oh, it's not going to be pretty.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
I think the CP management has to go as the best players not only know what they're spending it on, but also know roughly what their opponents are going to be spending it on.
Yep.
And try and force your opponent to make decisions where they're having to use CP they don't necessarily want to
That
use.
is absolutely correct. Yeah, there's a really kind of it's like you're baiting it out.
Yeah.
You put things in a position where it's not really an important unit, but if it goes off, it'll do some spectacular damage. And that's I've noticed like list building these days at the moment. People have a lot of cheap units that put out a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And you're trying to build these MSU armies that, because of your use of strats and spells, can really output damage in like a lot of different ways. And if your opponent doesn't use their strats and they don't counter those things, then you'll get value. And if they do kill those things, they're spending their own CP to do so.
Yep.
And then you're not spending CP on the things because they're dead, and you end up winning the CP war, which, as we've seen right here, is extremely important because Auspex can swing this game and interrupt. A fight interrupt can always swing a game.
This is something that I was talking about with someone else about the new Agents of Vect. I don't know if you've seen the new version of Agents of Vect.
Very interesting.
People are going, oh my god, it's crap, and I've gone, are you kidding me? The only thing you can't play it on is the command reroll. You can play it on any other stratagem. If you look at the table and go, oh, you know what? I don't want you interrupting me again. You've done it once to me. I don't.
3
I don't
CP for an interrupt?
3 CP interrupt.
It's not going to happen. That Art of War game that I referenced earlier that I watched, it was 3 units of 5 Cerberus Raiders, which have the 2 CP strat to flee when you charge them.
3 CP.
That is the most frustrating thing to play against.
Yep.
When it's 3 CP, that is an extremely hard choice for the AdMake player to make. They're more than likely just going to give up the unit in that case. Because
Absolutely.
3 CP is monstrous. So no, I'm a big fan of that change. I think also Vect has a real feels bad kind of element to it.
Yeah.
Where if you've got a strat that your army kind of builds around, and a lot of the older books do this, where they'll have a specific thing that this is
swooping
what...
dive for custody, bike armies.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And they've got this one key thing, and the Dark Elder can just go, no,
you're not
I'm going
doing
to
that.
spend my entire game's worth of CP just
stopping
saying
you.
no to you doing that.
Yeah.
And that's not fantastic. It's not fun to play against. I'm sure it's not that fun to play with when you spend your 12 CP
No,
on
it's
3 Vex.
It's hugely hilarious the first couple of times you do it, and then after that you're left going, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not an interesting game decision. You just say no, pay your 4 CP, move on. This is a legitimately interesting decision. What's the critical stratagem? Identifying what that is, and if your opponent's then also trying to bait it out by layering their stratagem use in a certain way, there's all of a sudden this huge metagame of trying to get it on the right thing.
Yep. And if you go, I mean, you look at a Chaos list, and is it Veterans of the Long War is 1 CP?
Yes, I think it is, yeah.
So people might be trying to stop more expensive stratagems. For me, that's an easy Veterans of the Long War. Cool, now it's 2 CP, not 1.
Yep, absolutely. I think we've seen some of the local players, Rob included, and Andrew Horton as well, his brother, taking in things like the Calexis Assassin for CP, messing with people's CP.
Yep.
And the big thing is like what we just spoke about 5 minutes ago with this CP roadmap. If you've got a CP roadmap where you go, I'm going to be spending, say, 6 to 7 of my CP on these specific strategies that make my army work.
Yep.
That leaves me with, say, 2 for 1 interrupt, 3 for like a random occurrence, whatever it is. You've got a roadmap in place.
Yep.
That goes out the window when Vect comes into play.
Absolutely.
And anytime you can mess with your opponent's strategy going into a game, like, you introduce variables, and that's always a winning thing.
Well, particularly players start feeling out of control when you start introducing variables they hadn't accounted for or aren't prepared for, or they just all of a sudden it's like, hang on a minute, and the best players go okay and adjust and move on, and if you're not ready for that, you can be left, what do I do now?
It's interesting you say that because I feel like there's 2 types of like great players. Some of the best players are great because they adapt and they think on the fly, and some of the best players are the best because they strategize pre-game and they go in with a list and a strategy and a clear kind of like way they're going to take the game on. And so Vect really messes with some of the top players because it throws them out of their comfort zone, and if they're not able to adapt, huge leg up.
Adapt or die.
Yep, exactly.
So
Tyranids.
Yeah. So we've seen the Lord Discordant go into the Apothecary as predicted.
Yep.
We've seen the Fiends choose to go into only the Blade Guard Ancient at the bottom. But now we've got the Bloodletters going in to basically everything else. So they've gone into Ezekiel, they've gone into the Chaplain, and from the looks of it, the Terminators to boot as well.
Yep.
So
okay.
we're going
Again,
in
I was
big.
looking at the wrong screen, so I'm like,
Yep.
are you just predicting the future? But
No,
it's right there.
I'm looking at the little one over here. This is the one that I monitor things with, and this is the one that everyone else sees.
Yep.
I might try and get a score update from the boys in a second as well once they finish this turn.
So it's interesting he's gone into all the characters because the Chaplain, so the
He's-
Captain obviously
he's
puts out a
Tooth-
lot of attacks.
Well, it's his Tooth of Terror. He's the +1 attack. What's
Imperium
it called?
Swords.
Yeah.
Warlord trait. So I think he's probably pumping out somewhere in the vicinity of like 8 attacks.
Yeah.
Now he probably could have positioned this so that he
But Shane
didn't
can't
come within
interrupt.
heroic into range. Oh, true. If you can't if you can't interrupt, those bloodletters do serious work. I believe it's like strength 5
Strength 5 next
-3.
Yeah.
It might be -4 if you roll a 6 to wound or something like that.
I don't remember. I know they've got a trigger on a 6, but I don't remember what it is. I know
Yeah.
they've basically got power swords.
Yeah. So the 4s to wounds might.
Is it 2 hits instead of 1? Now I need to look it up.
I believe they're 2 damage per attack. So if you're at strength 5 -3, 2 damage, that's a great base profile for picking up Marines. The hard thing is that permanent transhuman really does mess up with.
Yeah, on a 6 to wound, it's 2 damage instead of 1.
Okay, that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. So I know transhuman will make this interesting as to how he will separate his attacks, because you can't rely on your normal math of this goes in here, this goes in there. You kind of want to overkill things because 4s to wound is very swingy.
Okay, so just to give you the full tide of what's about to happen, because there's 20 or more models, they're getting +1 to hit.
Beautiful. Makes it 2s.
So they're hitting on 2s. On the turn they charge, they all get +1 attack and +1 strength.
Which puts them at?
It's only 2 attacks, but strength 5.
Okay.
So you've got 40 attacks hitting on 2s, winning on 3s.
Winning on 4s. Everything has transhuman.
Oh, that's true, yeah. So the
Yep.
strength doesn't matter,
Yep.
but the attacks do.
The attacks is very relevant.
Because, of course, all the characters have Inner Circle.
Yep.
They also get +1 to advance and charge, which doesn't matter here. They clearly made the charge because the Banner of Blood combined with...
3d6 8 out of reserves is very reliable.
Yeah.
Especially 'cause when
3d6
you...
+1 because of this.
Yeah, so that's why the 8
Yeah.
comes in. So it's you're not deep strike 9 inches away, so you're looking at a 3d6 8 to charge.
Well, it would have been a 10 because they're on a crater there. So it's a -2 there. So
-2.
it was a vaguely risky thing.
Yep. And the CP reroll, the good thing about the Banner of Blood is that you do get the 3d6 when you CP reroll, so 2 chances to hit that is
Yeah.
pretty reliable.
But it does mean, obviously, what he's potentially done. You got
All
0?
right, thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Can you let us know when you regenerate one next turn? Okay.
So you've got to assume that Blade Guard Ancient is not long for this world from 5 Fiends.
No, they do a surprising amount of attacks.
And because he's got, from memory, he's got no invul, he's basically 5 wounds T4 with a 3-up save. Well, that was creepy. There's something on the camera. So they should
Pick him
make
up.
short work of him.
Yep.
And I would also assume that the Lord Discordant removes that Apothecary. And if
Absolutely.
if Rob's on it, he kills the Apothecary first. He activates, kills the Apothecary, removes the Feel No Pain aura.
Yep. Yep. And
Judging by the
Apothecary
dice that are
is
being rolled.
picked up.
Oh. There's a bug up there. So there goes the Apothecary.
Again, we're seeing the Deathwing being picked apart here. I do wonder if maybe the early predictions of Deathwing being OP were a little bit premature. On paper, rules are amazing, absolutely fantastic, but I've seen it in a number of games here. We're not seeing the tournament results come through, and I think you can just pick them apart. If you have the tools, you ignore the Terminator bricks, you
Yep.
get after the
Kill-
characters,
kill
and beat
everything
them on
else.
scenario.
Yep.
Same with anything that kind of presents an unkillable problem is you beat them in scenario and just like remove the things you can remove.
Look at the Paladin star with Drago and Apothecary and Voldus and all the other bits you stack on them. And, yeah, you operate around them. You don't try and punch them in the face.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
That's one of the great things I love about 9th edition is that you're always in the game regardless of what your opponent is presenting because you can just choose to ignore them and play the mission.
yeah.
If it's an unkillable star, you've still got avenues to victory.
It's only if you've turned around and decided to somewhat foolishly grind them down, assassinate, and a bunch of these random secondaries that
Yeah,
leaves you going, oh, I
absolutely.
have to kill them now.
Well, if you shoot yourself in their own foot, don't
That's your
complain
own
when
fault.
you bleed out.
Yeah.
That's
That's exactly right. So this looks like the fiend's going at the based on the amount of dice, because that's not enough dice for bloodletters.
So what are we seeing here with the bloodletters? Do you think they'll put all their attacks into the captain, or do you go after Ezekiel? Do you even care about Ezekiel at this point?
From memory, Ezekiel's only got a 5-up save invulnerably if he has an invul at all. At one point there he did. I don't know if he does anymore. If he doesn't have an invul, I would probably just take him out as a matter of course.
Yep. Oh, of course, Assassinate. This is a massive play.
Yeah.
If he's taking Assassinate, he picks up, say, 4 characters here in one turn.
Yep.
Yeah, this is game over.
So
Looking at here.
Ezekiel is 2-up armor.
Okay. So that's a 5-up versus those power swords they're rocking?
Has a 4-up invulnerable save built in now.
Okay. So 4s to wound, 4s to save. I think we'll see... I wouldn't be surprised if we see all these characters go down, to be honest.
He's only 5 wounds, though. Which is not great.
The 6s are going to be important here. Getting that to 2 damage and getting those to go through. There'll be a bit of luck here in how this shapes down. I wonder if you do split your attacks if you just choose one character. Because Ezekiel's not going to fight his way out of this many attacks.
So it looks like he's piling in now. And look, to be fair, Ezekiel's probably the safer of the two because of where he's positioned in that chain. So the Ancient's dead. And obviously removing him after the Apothecary makes sense because then you're reducing that aura of damage as well.
Yep.
And doing it in the right order makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like you could argue to go with the Ancient before you go with the Apothecary, but I feel like the Apothecary's...
No, I think you get the...
Apothecary first.
Because the neg 1 damage aura from the Ancient is you pick a unit in the command phase, and that unit has it for the... So picking up the Ancient doesn't matter too much until the next turn when he would want to pick someone.
Yeah.
Getting rid of that Apothecary for the 6-up fuel no pain is critical. So he's definitely done this in the right order.
Yeah. So from the looks of the way the pile-ins are going to happen, it's gonna be the Chaplain who takes it.
Yep.
The majority anyway, because it looks like we're probably going to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12... 2, 4, 6, 8... maybe 10 on the Chaplain. And then it's probably only going to be 5 or 6 on Ezekiel. So you probably pick up one of the characters, but because of that ruin and the way everything was deployed, I don't know you get both.
No.
Bit of
But
luck,
to be honest, it doesn't actually matter because he's surrounded them. He's got all the models there. If he wraps that character and you can't fall back because he doesn't have the CP to Desperate Breakout, that means there's no shooting coming into that Bloodletter bomb. That's protecting the... I mean, the Terminators might go after the Discordant at that point.
Yeah, but if you go after the Discordant, you're exposing yourself to the other 20 Bloodletters who are stood out there around the corner.
There's a big old trap card sitting there.
You've also got the Decimator directly above the Lord Discordant, and you don't really want to walk out into that.
So I think this is the point of the game where, as Shane, you kind of have to recognize that this is a game that you're losing. So how do you maximize points? And like looking at your secondaries, working out where your avenues are to keep getting 5s on primary, those sort of things.
So he took Stubborn Defiance, which is the Dark Angels one.
Yep.
He took Vital Intelligence, which is the mission specific.
Yep. So Data Intercept will be tough.
And While We Stand, We Fight.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that will then apply to the Deathwing Blob, the smaller Deathwing unit, and then I would assume one of the characters.
I think the Talon Master usually gets it.
Yeah, the Talon Master will pick it up as well.
Yep.
He's the next most expensive.
So the Talon Master, with his mobility, and I think he'll be able to survive to the end of the game.
So that's 5 points.
Yep. The Deathwing unit is not long for this world.
No, if those Bloodletters get a chance to charge them, that's them done.
Yep. So one of the things you can do here is if the Deathwing Terminators go after the Lord Discordant, and you use the Plasma Inceptors to tag the Bloodletters from just like one very small spot, and position them so that they have to consolidate away from your Knights, you can actually limit the amount of attacks that will come back onto those Terminators by the second bomb. So if the Talon Master in the bottom left swings around towards the bottom and picks up a vast majority of those Bloodletters, and then the Deathwing Knights can go into...
Well, he's 2 heavy bolters and 2 assault cannons, isn't he?
Yeah, so it's 12 shots from the assault cannons, 6 to 8 shots? 6 shots
from the heavy bolters. Yeah.
So it's a lot of shots, and it's hitting on 2s, and you're wounding on...
Well, they're T3, so it's 3s and 2s
3s and 2s. So the 12 shots are hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s. So if you pick up half the unit with the Talon Master, and then the Knights can pick up the Discordant. The issue is that you've then got to hide from the Decimators again. So maybe at that point you consolidate to tag.
We've also got those Reaper chain cannons that are now on the top right objective.
He's just surrounded.
And you can't really afford to swing too close to those Reapers because all of a sudden you've got 24 shots. And if you notice, the Bloodmaster is now centrally positioned that he can buff either of the Decimators or the chain cannon unit.
Yep, that looks great. Is there anything on that top left-hand objective?
I don't believe so at the moment. I would assume that those cultists are kind of tucked away.
Oh, actually, this mission is tap and go. So if you control this at the end of your command phase,
oh yes, you're
you
right.
can leave it and still control it. So those Decimators were controlling that, so they freely were able to walk off that, and he still controls that one. So right now,
so he's controlling 4 at the moment.
4 at the moment. Yep.
And to be fair, depending on how many of those bloodletters, because obviously those characters are conspicuous in their absence.
I don't see him.
I don't think the characters lived.
I don't think they did.
And obviously with the bloodletters piling onto that objective, it's going to be in a position where they outnumber the Deathwing, so obset counts for nothing.
Yes.
So at that point, he controls 5 of the 6 objectives.
And Shane might get that one back off him.
He's not
but
taking.
he's not touching any of the ones in the top 3.
No.
He doesn't have the models to get to the bottom right either, so it's going to be a 15-point primary for Rob here, I think, regardless.
Yeah, I think so too.
He's removing some bloodletters. Do we get some attacks back from...
Probably a fight on death would be my guess.
No, that costs CP.
Oh, it does too, you're right.
It might have been that he piled in to touch...
Might have been piling to the Terminators.
Yeah,
and
yep.
He's now been punched in the face as a result.
Which feels like a mistake. That's unnecessary attacks.
The only reason you'd do it is if you were going to take them from the back of the Bloodletter Bomb to keep them tagged in combat. You might be willing to sacrifice that and go, well...
That does protect the Lord Discordant.
Yeah.
And at that point, the Bloodletters are there to die. They've come in, they've nuked the characters, and the Lord Discordant is probably one of the few things that can chase down the Talon Master and get you that last while we stand point.
And obviously the character point attached to it. So that's an 8-point swing in that model.
Yeah, absolutely. So at that point, if the Bloodletters can tie up the Terminators, fantastic.
Although I do notice he's got 2 bodyguards, I think, tucked away behind there for the Talon Master because he is a character. So,
yeah. But you can't bodyguard melee.
No, that's true.
What happened?
So that Bloodletter Bomb...
Ooh.
So that Bloodletter Bomb was actually intended for the Talon Master and failed it.
Okay.
With a CP reroll.
Because it did look like where he deployed them was out of line of sight, so he wouldn't be able to Overwatch.
Yep.
I think even if Shane did have a CP, which I think he did at the start of the turn, because on Overwatch, if he has the right relic on the Talon Master, he Overwatches on 2s. He uses his normal ballistic skill.
Does he really?
Yes.
Wow.
So if you charge that guy, it's 18 shots hitting on 2s.
Oh, it's horrible.
So the way they're positioned around the ruin there... that's what we're saying. He can't Overwatch. Yeah. So Rob was very smart with his positioning there. And this is again the little thing. So if the Talon Master had been where it is now, the previous turn, all of a sudden that play that should have been very reliable, a 3d6 8 with a reroll, is extremely dangerous because that Overwatch will pick up half the unit.
And at that point, you have to be willing to leave the back of the unit dead to try and guarantee a charge, which you could still fail.
Yeah. No, those Talon Masters are extremely tricky in the way you have to approach them. With the Bodyguard rule, the Overwatch on the 2s for one of them.
Yeah.
The other one can have... I think there's a pretty interesting sword you can give it as well. So in the mid-game, it can go around and start using its very large move to go and hunt characters.
See, it's funny. Everyone goes, Eldar, ignore the rules. No, you can't give relics to a vehicle unless you're a Dark Angel.
Yes, it specifically says you can't, except for those guys.
I had someone ask me a couple of days ago, can I give a relic to my Warlord Ironclad with 2 Warlord traits? And I've gone, no.
You're already pushing it with the 2 Warlord traits. Just calm down.
And even that, it's funny. That's a whole nother kettle of FAQ-ness because there's actually an FAQ answering the question, but it makes no sense.
I love those ones.
Because
GW's rules writers really get me in there.
It's a funny... I said to the guys when I was talking about it, I said the funny thing is the FAQ answer makes complete sense in narrative, open crusade play. It's just match play that the answer doesn't make any sense because it contradicts the other part of what you're asking, and they haven't asked the right question.
Oh, God.
So it's technically the right answer, but it's also the wrong answer for one mode of play, which makes it really awkward.
Yeah.
So you have to, as a TO, look at that and go, well, the intent for that answer seems to be that it works the way that you think it works, but it actually means I have to contradict the rule book to do it.
Yeah. And I know, like, we've had our rules debates recently.
That's fine.
And I think, like, you do a good job. You do a really good job with the rules. And there's more responsibility put on the TOs to make these calls than there should be. That should come from GW and being clearer with their rules, but you're in a situation where you've got to do it, and it's consistent, and that's all you can ask for. Is that when you go to a tournament, you have consistent rules, you know what you're going to be playing, and
look, I mean, I've said it before on streams and things, is that I don't always get it right, and I've come away from events before, gone and looked it up and gone, hey, fuck that up, pardon my French, I'm allowed 3 of them, it's fine.
I'm on 0 at the moment. I've been good.
But, you know, I do make mistakes. And I've had players come back to me after events and go, hey, man, I've gone and I've spent 3 days looking for this and I finally found this reference.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, I got it wrong. Yeah. And when you're in a position where you've got a timed turn, you're a clock and you've only got so long to make a decision, you get presented evidence and you're left going, based on the information I have at hand, this is the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most of the time, as long as you're considered and you're reasonable, you'll at least have 2 players that go, okay, I understand why.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
think it's always good when you've got... Sorry.
It's when you make a snap decision and then you have a player who you don't explain things to that players get upset.
Yeah.
They don't have to agree with you, but they have to at least understand your position.
Yep, for sure. That makes sense. And I know, like, if you've got a rules quirk or a query or something like that and you're going into a tournament, touch base with your TO before the event.
Absolutely.
Like, just go, hey, look, give them some prep time and say, look, this is something that might come up. I'm not quite sure how this works. What's your ruling? Then you can adjust your list. If it doesn't work, you're not left in this weird situation where you're at the tournament you're super bummed because you're like, oh, shit, my thing didn't work.
I had someone send me a message because they wanted to run a bloody bug up on the camera. He wanted to run the Necron fortifications. He thought that he'd found a way to give them a move characteristic because there's something that lets you add +1 with the dynasty that gives them +1 to their move characteristic.
Yep.
And he said, oh, that means that they go from a no move characteristic to a 1-inch.
Spicy.
And he comboed it with something that let them, because they could move, they can now advance. And because of something else, it let them shoot, even though their weapons are heavy because they had, like...
Was it Seb?
It was Seb.
This sounds like a Seb thing.
And he came to me and said, am I right? Does this work? And I went, no, you're not right. And he went, why? And I said, because I'm sure there's a bit in the rulebook that says a dashed characteristic can't be modified. And he said, can you find it for me and confirm that?
Yeah.
And 20 minutes later, I sent him a message back going, here's the page reference. No, you can't. And he went, aw.
It's actually the worst, though, when you think you found some like cool loophole and you're like, oh my god, this is going to be the greatest thing in the world. And there's just like one little clause somewhere that fucks it up.
And that's the thing.
That's my
There's
one.
your one. But the thing is, it's one of the reasons why I feel like TOs have to be active players as well.
Yeah.
You can't afford to TO the events in the modern 40k world without actually being a player as well.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
there's so many weird little things that you have to try and keep in your head and pick up. And there's a whole bunch of armies in the game right now that I've got a decent understanding of, but there's also, like, Chaos is a really big blind spot for me in terms of the intricacies of the army.
Yeah.
I know what things basically do, but...
It's the mechanics of, like, how you got to that end result.
Yep.
That's always the interesting one. Like, this list is a perfect example of, like, you've got, like, 5 or 6 different auras that are interacting with each other to give the list its concept. And if you don't understand where those things are coming from, what keywords allow you to do those things, 40k is a very... complicated game when you want to get down to the minutiae of it. You look at the Slanesh Demon combo with... so there's a Slanesh Demon strat that the FAQ says you're going to use the Demon strats on Slanesh Demon Codex models. So you can't use a strat that leverages Chaos Demon keywords on like a unit of Possessed. Okay. Because they're not a Chaos Demon, they're a Heretic Astartes. Yes, even though they have the Demon keyword.
So they have the keyword, not the faction keyword.
Yep.
However, there's a strat for the Slanesh Demons thing that you play it on a Herald or a character, So you're playing the stratagem on there,
Yep.
which meets all the criteria, but it gives the demon character an aura that works on Slanesh demon keywords, not faction keywords.
Good lord.
So you can play this stratagem on a demon's character, but affect Heretic Astartes possessed.
Fantastic.
And that works.
Yep.
It's completely legitimate, but
Yep.
the rage that I've seen people have over it, because that's not the intent. Well, I haven't broken any rules. The
No.
rules say I've played the strat on a Chaos Demon, which I've done. The fact that the aura works on things that aren't Chaos Demons is not part of the... I've played the strat on a legal target. The aura now impacts everything. Here we are.
That works. And you'd be surprised how many like top meta lists come about because of those interactions
Yep.
where someone discovers something and goes, oh, hang on a second, let's flesh this out a little bit,
Yeah.
see what it looks like, and all
Well,
of a sudden, bang, you've got a crazy new list.
I watched Liam Hackett do it at Uprising
With the 60 possessed?
with 60 possessed and that stratagem.
I saw that list melt
Yeah.
to Eric Lathuris's Grey Knight army.
Yep.
Shooty Tide versus Possessed, fantastic.
Yep.
But yeah, all of a sudden that list,
But I
people
also
said that Possessed were dead because at the start of 9th they were very expensive, they weren't quite doing their thing. And then fast forward 6 months and 60 Possessed are taking out, at that time, the biggest event
Yeah.
in the world.
Well, that list...
1 week after Masters.
Well, yeah.
Bastards.
I watched that. They played a Necron army, and those possessed, one unit of possessed killed 18 wraiths in a round of combat. Because you just layer it all up and watch
Yep.
them go.
Yep, they're a blender.
So we've lost a full Bloodletter bomb, and it looks like that's actually the chaplain still alive down there. I thought he'd died in the pool of Bloodletters, but apparently not.
No, and that's... I wonder if that was the Plasma Receptors. So if they picked up the characters that were sitting there, then that would have mean they were allowed to be shot.
Yeah.
So
We've also lost a bunch of the other Bloodletter squad as well.
that fly up there is doing work as well.
It is. It's really bothering me, and I'm trying to figure out... my arms aren't long enough to hit the damn thing. I need Alan to come over and shoo it away. It's one thing I do not have in my kitty for streaming is a can of bug spray. I'll ask Shane for it in the break. So that Talon Master's obviously ripped through and killed a few of the Bloodletters.
They're coming back.
Why are they coming back?
Is this because they have the Instrument of Chaos and he's rolled a...
It could be a
one
morale
for
thing.
his morale?
Could be a morale thing, yeah.
So I think that's the only thing that brings them back, isn't it? I'm not sure if Bloodletters have that or if that's like a horror Nurgle type thing.
Well, Horror and Nurgle definitely can do it. So here we have the...
So we're regenerating on the Lord Discordant. So obviously we've put some shots into that because unless the Lord Discordant's killed what attacked it.
It wouldn't have surprised me if the... the Chaplain couldn't Heroic Intervene. So the Chaplain, which obviously explains the Bloodletters we saw die when we were seeing the Bloodletters sort of consolidate. The deaths were probably from a Tooth of Terror, Imperium sword wielding.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll pick some things up. So that Lord Discordant has come over for the Talon Master as we spoke about.
Yep.
If that's the last while we stand,
that's an 8-point swing, yeah.
That is, yeah. So interestingly, he's leaving the Deathwing Knights, and so I wonder if that's because he feels like they're slow and he can always come back to them.
Well, look at the position on the table. The best they could do is move down to the other objective in the bottom right-hand corner to kind of control that. But you've also got those 10 cultists sat on the other side of the wall there just waiting to jump over and go, no, we control it.
Yep.
You can't afford to advance north towards that top objective because
No.
A, you don't have the time, and B, you've got decimators and chain cannons up there. And in a minute, you're about to have a bunch of Bloodletters threatening that zone as well.
Yep.
So you can probably afford to leave those Deathwing.
Yeah, the only thing that they're presenting is 5 points for while we stand.
Yeah.
So one thing I found interesting, and this is a real deep kind of metagame here, is that in this tournament, your countbacks are decided by your opponent's victory points. So if you're paying attention to the players pack, then it's actually incentivizing you to let your opponent score while you still win the game. So if you're really taking it to that next meta level, you might, at this point, say that the Deathwing Terminators don't present a threat as far as the game does, whereas the Talonmaster still does. So if you're going to pick one of the two while we stands to go after, you kill the Talonmaster, that's an actual threat. If you get back to killing the Deathwing Terminators, awesome. If not, not the worst thing for you in the overall standings.
So I'm just trying to, in my head, wrap my head around that scenario. So the count back is on how well your opponents did.
Yes. That's what I was told by Azza.
Okay. Now I've got the players pack, so we're going to have a look
Just
at that.
double check that one because I found that it's a bit different to how tournaments are mostly run.
See, for me in my head, it sounds like it's just strength of schedule, but it's not at the same time. That's pairing.
Well, that is how strength of schedule works anyway, isn't it?
Basically, yeah. I can't see army selection.
Well, even if it is normal strength of schedule, the same kind
Yeah,
of
same
still
sort of
applies.
thing, yeah.
So if that's a decision, if you're trying to work out which one of those two wild we stands that we go after,
Yeah, absolutely.
you go after the one that does work. And if you come back in, say, a turn or two
Oh,
time,
here we go. If two players have equal points, countbacks will be done based on their total cumulative victory points. So
doesn't say to the better or worse.
but what I mean is that's only counting back on your own score. Your opponent's score doesn't matter. So each player is awarded 2 points for a win, 1 for a draw, and 0 for a loss. Pretty standard.
Okay. Yep.
And then if two players have equal points, countbacks will be done based on their total cumulative victory points.
Okay, so Azza just can't read.
Azza just can't
Yeah,
read.
just false information. So ignore everything we just said. So in a normal strength of schedule tournament, though, which most things do run, that does kind of go after your opponent's VP.
Yeah.
So these are some kind of like interesting tactical decisions where you go after the thing that will do work against you. If your opponent happens to score a few points at the end, not the worst thing for you. In a team environment or a tournament that's using a 20-0 scaling system, every point is absolutely critical.
Absolutely.
And you want to deny your opponent at every turn.
So what we're seeing is we're going to deal with those Terminators the old-fashioned way with 2 Soul Burner Decimators.
How is that the old-fashioned way? I never heard of these things until like 2 weeks ago. Oh my god.
Oh dear.
I love it though. It's
It does
cool.
look like those 2 Decimators and the chain cannons are going to come in and try and clear those Terminators.
So do the Havocs go into the Inceptors here? Is that you think the play or?
I'm actually wondering whether we need to get up and have a quick look at the table because there's a green and gold Space Marine down the very bottom with those fiends.
I've been wondering who that was.
And
And it has a wound marker next to it.
I can't help but think that's the Plasma Inceptors. I can't tell because the angle of the camera means that we can't necessarily see exactly what that is.
If that were the case, how did they pick up the Decimator from all the way back there? Let me have a quick look. I'll
All right.
pop up.
All right. Don't forget you're wearing headphones. And walk off and... We're going to get some live... Actually, if you want to find the score as well, that'd be awesome. It's a very confused look on Ben's face at the moment, trying to figure out what's going on over there. It's one of the hurdles of streaming this sort of thing is trying to make sure that we're giving accurate information while we chat. Plasma Inceptors killed themselves, from the sounds of it. I can vaguely read that. Let's have a look at that. It's certainly not looking pretty for Shane. Let's update some scores here for you guys. Yeah, it's not looking pretty for the Dark Angels, I'll admit. So... Oh, that's not pretty. Ouch. So at the moment, it's 13 points to 59 in favour of Chaos. That is about as bad as it gets.
All right, we're back. What is the score?
So on primary, Shane has 5 and Rob has 35.
Okay.
Now, bear in mind, this is Rob has had his turn 4, but Shane hasn't had his turn 4 yet.
Okay.
So this is kind of mid-turn 4 scoring.
Yep.
However, it doesn't look pretty.
It does not. So the Plasma Receptors died
To themselves.
and then were finished off by the Havocs, the
Yep.
last one. So what we're seeing on the table at the moment
what's
is
down the
that
bottom there?
in the bottom left-hand ruin is a full 10-man Deathwing brick.
Oh, wow.
It's a
That's
full
Stubborn
unit.
Defiance.
That's Stubborn Defiance, absolutely. So those guys are sitting in there.
So the secondary point's tied up there.
Yep. So the bottom middle ruin is holding 2 Deathwing Terminators, and then we've got 3 more Deathwing Terminators on that middle bottom objective. So
okay.
I think that's a unit of 10 that's combat squatted.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So we've got 3 remaining on the objective and 2 remaining down in that bottom left-hand corner.
And then
the
obviously the
Teeth of Terror chaplain is still there as well.
Yeah, he looks wounded though, so that's something.
He does.
And the Talon Master's probably not going to have an enjoyable time
No.
with that, because he's a vehicle, isn't he?
He is.
Which means that you get the buffs for that from the Lord Discordant as well.
So I'm assuming here what's happened is that the chaplain has survived the bloodletters and has used his jump back to fall back out of combat. And then some shooting's gone into that bloodletter bomb and picked it up with a bit of melee as well.
I mean, you've got Stormbolters there, and a handful of Stormbolters will do that.
Yep, they'll pick him up. Absolutely.
Particularly with the chaplain, with the litanies and things, giving them +1s to wound and
Yep.
those sorts of things. You know, the last thing you want is Stormbolters hitting on 3s with a reroll and then wounding on 2s.
Yeah, for sure. So I wonder if last turn was the turn that the Talon Master should have zoomed off to that top left-hand objective.
Yeah.
Because then you remove it for the primary for a little bit, so it might only be a 10. Get him away from the Lord Discordant. And now that we know that it's a 10-man Terminator brick sitting down the bottom there, they can actually kind of just push out onto the objective. They're not going to die to 2 Decimators.
No.
And by leaving the Talon Master there, all you're actually doing is giving the Bloodletters a charge target. And if they don't have a charge target, they can't get onto that objective with the right number of obsec bodies to take it away from you.
Yep, absolutely.
If those guys make the charge onto the Talon Master, which I'm not sure what we're seeing here at the moment, but they could have, if they had made the charge, you take that away, all of a sudden Stubborn Defiance drops down to a...
They're actually
very bad
charging
score.
the chaplain.
Oh.
Well, it's worth 3 victory points, so I suppose that makes a bit of sense.
That makes sense. And then if they do pick him up, that's one less threat that's coming back his way, and then he can get onto that objective the following turn.
Well, you can also then pile them into those Terminators that are fighting the Fiends at the moment.
Yep.
And then between what you've got there, they can then go and, assuming that the those other Terminators don't die in turn 5 to the Soul Burners and everything up from the Decimators.
We're seeing what we kind of talked about before, whereas if you dedicate a 400-point Terminator unit to sitting there and just doing a secondary, it's a big detriment to your army.
I can't even look up Stubborn Defiance because for some bizarre reason the secondaries are not in the app.
That is the single most frustrating thing about the app. It's the only bad thing from what I've seen is why are they not in there?
Well, it's funny you say that because I have a contact who's part of the tournament organizer group we're in, and he has heard that complaint on more than one occasion as to why they're not in there. I will put another one in this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the one thing where I've got a folder on my phone of screenshots of the random faction secondaries so that when you want to check what they are, because the wording on them is always a little bit funny. And Stubborn Defiance is one of those ones where you can never remember off the top of your head, is it 2, 3, or whatever it is. So, yeah, put them in the app, please. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be very much appreciated, particularly for a TO who wants to be able to access everything at once.
Yes. Which is the whole point of having these all-inclusive apps.
Yeah.
And it is largely quite good. That's definitely one feature that's missing at the moment.
Look, I mean, I'm hoping that as they iron the last of the kinks out of the army builder, because to be honest, I prefer it to Battle Scribe a lot of the time now. I'm hoping that they get on top of it from a tech point of view so that the updates are instant and they're correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of the biggest hurdle at the moment.
So I know they're not willing to do the digital PDFs again because of the ease at which they're pirated, and it just makes sense to have all the rules from a business point of view. It makes sense to have the rules just incorporated within the app, but it would be nice if the codexes that you buy, or that you kind of like link through the app, whenever there's an errata or an update, that stuff goes straight onto that codex. I don't know how you could...
I know that when they did the points changes, they were instant. The day they published that PDF, it happened in the app.
Yep.
Although that being said, I refreshed my app last night because I've obviously put the Drakari code and the Rust codes in.
Code of Rust, yep.
They didn't work They accepted the codes. They didn't accept them until last night. I tried putting them in when I got the books on Tuesday.
Yeah, okay.
And they just didn't, they just declined and said that those codes don't exist.
Yep.
They went in last night, but the last time I refreshed it was about 11 o'clock last night, and they still, my login said they were there, but there was no data.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. So what, release day is today?
Yeah, release date's today.
Yep.
But I don't know, if I do it now, I don't actually know whether I've got the latest version in here or whether they want to wait until, America's release.
Well, all I can say is it's actually nice to have everything being releasing at the same time. Because obviously the old classic Australian problem was that we get our releases many, many months after everything else.
No, still haven't got it.
Nope. Okay. Hellions.
Still have one wound.
And they've still only got 2 attack space.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Oh, that's a Heliarch.
Oh, the Heliarch,
I got caught out as well to the top one.
Yeah. So, no, I've put the codes in and they've been accepted, but I still haven't got it in the app.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that tonight I'll see it refresh and...
Yeah. No, it's good.
It's good. Because the Book of Rust isn't showing up here either.
Don't get me started on that Book of Rust.
No, it's not. Oh, the funny thing is the best thing they could have done with that, in my opinion, was first of all taken if they put all the Drakari rules that are in it onto one page, which they could have done, because it's spread out over 3 pages and most of those pages is artwork or photos.
Yeah.
That should have just gone straight in the codex.
Yes.
And then everything else, all the armies of renown, should have just been, here is your narrative play theme armies.
Yep.
The fact that they are actually more balanced than formations is a good thing, because there's massive limits to what you can take.
And I didn't play 7th edition, but I heard formations kind of very much shaped the meta. It was...
So the biggest problem there were 2 formations in particular that were the biggest problems. The first was the Adeptus Mechanicus War Convocation, which was basically you didn't pay for upgrades for anything.
No worries.
If you bought a unit of 10 Scutari
Yep.
and you wanted to put 3 Aquabus in there, the Aquabus was 0 points. It meant that every single character, all the sergeants, always got shock mauls and rad pistol, all the weapon upgrades you could possibly. So, but it had to be. You had to have at least one knight. It was quite limited in what you could do, but it basically meant you bought the cheapest knight, and it got rocket pods, and it got this, and it got that, and it worked out. If you did it right, you got about 700 points of free war gear.
Holy crap. That is a very sad AdMech player when formations go away and you've got to remodel all your sergeants with just their basic shitty weapons. That's a lot of remodeling.
And then there was only exceeded by the Space Marine Battle Company.
I heard about that one.
The Battle Company was, you had to take 6 tactical squads, 2 assault squads, 2 devastator squads, and a captain and a chaplain. You had to take that.
Yeah.
But in return, you basically got a free transport for every unit. So you got 10 drop pods or 10 rhinos or 10 basic razorbacks for free. And when you added all that up, it was 700-ish points worth of vehicles. If you did it right, it was hugely beneficial to you.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of the War Machine theme lists, and I won't mention War Machine too much in the stream, but theme lists and formations
some of the theme
and that sort of
lists in
thing.
War Machine Mark II.
They were interesting, but when you start to dictate how people build their army because you want those benefits because the benefits are too good, it's a real detriment to creative list building.
Well, look at was it Gareth with the
the Mage Hunter,
the Mage Hunter Strike Force?
Yeah.
How broken was that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there was a lot of stuff like that where all of a sudden you've got one list that you take with that caster or with that army because the formation or the theme force is too good.
Yep.
So hopefully the new ones in the Book of Rust are a lot more reserved, and hopefully they stay that way.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I mean, the Typhus one's an interesting one because you're basically giving up all vehicles, anything with a vehicle keyword, and Mortarion.
Yeah, which is...
And in exchange, you get Deep Strike, basically, on your Plague Marines. And you go, is the trade-off there? I mean, you get a new Psychic Discipline and a few stratagems as well, but I will admit to having not delved into those too deeply because my brain read Drakari and I didn't really care about the rest. And it's the same with the admit component of it. And
Yeah.
the one that's the most interesting to me is the free blades with the knights.
That's the one I haven't really looked at because knights are not in the best spot. So I was like,
No,
I'll
but-
learn about it when I come across it.
It was more a case of making knights interesting to play because every single knight can have different free blade abilities. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden you get this army of 4 or 5, and it goes right down to the armigers as well can become free blades, and then
Yeah.
you start getting these cool themed knights that you can start doing stuff with.
That is actually pretty cool.
So yeah, I don't think it'll be good, but
Right.
I think it'll be
Yeah.
an interesting
And
way
good-
of.
good for Crusade or
Yeah.
like kind of more like fluffy games.
And I think that's where a lot of them will end up, is
Yeah.
that because like I was thinking about it, going, oh well, I can't take Mortarion in this detachment. That's fine. I'll just put him in a Supreme Command. But you can't. It actually says army, not detachment.
Good,
So a lot of
good.
these are heavily limited, not just by detachment, but by no, you just can't take
By the
that.
army. I like that. That's good.
Yeah, I think that's a solid thing.
So looking at the table, the Talon Master has
He's
been
dead.
picked up. Yep, and it
The
looks
chaplain is still there. He's
like
still
the chaplain
swinging.
is, and there's not many bloodletters left. But it looks like one of the two Terminators that was in that bottom middle
Yep.
ruin has disappeared.
And we've lost a couple of Terminators from the other squad as well,
Yeah.
in the midfield there.
So I dare say that
The game is all but over, let's face it.
Yeah,
With
so
the
the-
score being the way it is.
the Terminators, I think, in the bottom left can come out and pick up the Discordant, like no worries. He'll hold that to the end of the game. The Soul Burners are out of range to really do much about that. So he'll get his 15 for Stubborn Defiance.
Yep.
He'll get his 5 for While We Stand on that big unit as well. If the Terminators on the bottom middle objective, I'm assuming combat squad, that would also be a While We Stand. So I'll be protecting those from the Soul Burners, absolutely.
Yeah.
And between them and the Teeth of Terror, you'd almost give up that objective because you're not really doing anything this turn. Come down into that bottom ruin, try and pick up the Bloodletters, hide for a turn, and then on turn 5, when you get to score at the end of your turn, pop
Well-
back out and try and get a 10.
I'm 90% sure what's happening now.
Rob, have you had your turn 5? No? Here's turn 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they've got 15 minutes left to finish up turn 4 and 5.
true.
But I think the points at this point it's uncatchable. I mean, Rob in theory maxes his primary.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
So-
only question.
So I think that at this point in time, Rob wins this game. The question is how much.
Absolutely, yeah.
You would assume.
Well, he would have maxed out Assassinate.
I think he has to kill because he's got the Blade Guard Ancient, he's got the Talon Master, he's got the Apothecary, he's got Ezekiel.
Yep. So
The
it's
Teeth of Terror is still swinging.
Yeah.
I think he's the only other character in the army.
Okay.
So he's 12 of 15 there.
Okay.
Vital Intelligence was another one that Rob picked.
That's interesting
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
because what infantry unit is doing the action?
Well, there's
It might be the Havocs.
well, you've got the Havocs, but you've also got the Cultists, and you got a Cultist unit at the top left. You got a Cultist unit in the bottom right.
Oh, those they do have to be on the objective to do the action. Are the cultists in the
Oh, the top right, top right.
Are they on the objective?
Yeah. So these Cultists are on the objective, aren't they, Rob?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, but for data incept, for vital intelligence.
we'll just-
Don't worry about it. Yeah. From the sounds of it, he's probably playing
yeah,
for that.
Yeah. So, and that's one of those ones where that secondary snowballs really fast. If you're holding 5 on one turn, all of a sudden it's a third
Yeah.
of that secondary done in one turn, and you can just pick up 2s and 3s here and there.
I'm guessing that we're probably going to see a max primary. If he doesn't max secondary, it's going to be close.
Yeah, it might be like a 80 to 85 out of 90 sort
Yeah.
of score. The
It'll-
question is like how much can Shane score on the flip side?
Well, I mean, the primary at this point is only going to be for Shane, 15 to 20?
Yeah, so he would have
In
had
turn 5, he's going to pick up 5 to 10 points.
He picked up 5 that turn because he was
Yep.
on 2 objectives. He doesn't have the units left to actually stretch out to a third. So even though he's got the bottom of 5 scoring, he'll only be getting another 5 from that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also to do with if he's got nothing mobile enough to leave an objective.
No.
So
No, not
yeah.
at all.
So
No.
he's going to get 15 for primary. He's going to get, like we've said, 15 for Stubborn Defiance.
Yep.
While we stand, we fight. He's probably scoring 5.
I think it might be a 10 Because if it's the Talonmaster and the 2 Deathwing bricks, when they combat squad, you've got to kill both combat squad units.
Yeah, okay.
So those 3 Terminators.
So that's
that
25 points in secondaries.
Yeah. So they've moved out. If they kill,
What does he have to do for vital intelligence? Can the Terminator brick do that?
they can. It's any infantry unit can do vital
Grab
intelligence.
my rulebook.
Data intercepts.
Huh? Cultists in there for engage. I forgot that was the other secondary he took was engage on all
Engage.
fronts.
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
That's an easy
With a
two
lot
or-
of like deep striking and fast elements, he can get engaged
yeah,
very
two,
easily.
2 or 3 points a turn pretty comfortably.
Yep. So Shane is being careful with this to make sure that when he moves up to kill this Discordant, he is... Well, this is actually quite good here. He might get himself a 15 primary in the last turn. Or at least a 10, rather than the 5 we were talking about. Because by moving up the way he has, and killing the Discordant, he's protected himself from the Soul Burners in return. And after he kills the Discordant, which you would assume is a gimme, he can then consolidate, stretch out onto a second objective on the bottom of 5. He'll still be controlling the bottom left for Stubborn Defiance. He'll be on 1, 2, 3 objectives.
So we will hold 2, hold 3, so that's 10 points.
So that gives him a 10 points. So he needs 3 to get a 10. He can't get hold more.
No, he can't get hold
He doesn't
more.
have the models left. But with some decent rolls, as long as those right-hand Terminators don't just randomly die to any return attacks here, he should get a 10 for While We Stand, a 15 for Stubborn Defiance, and you're probably only looking at like a 4 or 5 for Vital Intelligence, sadly. Primary was where this game was won and lost.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely picked up a few points for vital intelligence from those Deathwing.
Yep.
Because at one point there he had 3 objectives and he's had 2 for a couple of turns there, and they're set there doing nothing. So he's probably picked up 5 to 7 points in that space.
And this is the real strength of the Dark Angels. Is like, we've been watching this game, and honestly, it's like Shane's been getting smashed on the table. And you look at the position, and you look at what's going on, but he's still doing all his secondaries. So once the Dark Angel list gets refined to a point where it can compete on primary on these spread objectives versus fast armies, the way that they score their own secondaries is extremely strong, and that'll always keep them at a good baseline. It's just the primary that counts.
I actually wonder how much of the Dark Angels is being missed by not going mass Ravenwing.
That is an interesting one. There was a meta report recently from Goonhammer a couple of weeks ago where a pure Ravenwing came second.
Yeah. I mean,
You're a fan?
Look, I mean, I like the idea, but that's because I play Eldar. So I like my mobility. I don't.
Yep.
I've tried to play static armies before; it just doesn't suit me.
No.
But I like the idea of Outriders. Black Knights are really solid.
Yep. Az is a big fan of those.
And even just the fact that those the standard what are they called, Ravenwing bikes, the models are not aging as gracefully as I might have liked. But the fact that you can have big squads of them, their objectives secured.
Yep.
There's a lot of opportunity. I mean, if you take a full squad, you can then combat squad them.
Yep.
The attack bikes are pretty solid.
Base move 14 and you auto turbo boost 6 inches.
Yep.
And then you add in the strats of pre-game move and all that sort of thing. All of a sudden you represent a massive threat where in a game like this, if you had a unit of 3 bikes just sitting in the back, that costs you like 60, 70 points. They're not expensive. They can turbo boost out. They can cap 2 objectives in the bottom of 5. It's little things like that where you can start to tech in, like, what's the core element on my list? Where can I bring in these other elements to play the scenario?
The only downside, I think, to the Ravenwing style of build is they're all 3.
Yeah.
Because they don't become troops. You're left in this awkward position where you go, cool, I want to take 2 units of 3 basic bikes. Now I can only take 1 more unit of bikes.
Yeah.
And it's the same issue with Black Knights. It's the same issue with Outriders. They're the units that you want us like multiples of, and you can't.
Yeah.
And at that stage, you're left going, well, I can't really run pure Ravenwing because I need those units to be doing my heavy lifting as well. So then again, like the new land speeder, the Primaris land speeders.
Oh, yeah.
They look quite interesting. There's one of those. I don't know if you noticed, one of them is BS2 plus.
Yeah, I guess like +1 to hit versus flyers
it's base BS2 plus.
No, I think it has both. I think it's 2
Really?
plus to hit and it gets +1 to hit against flyers.
Wow, okay.
It's something spicy like that. So even if it's meant to kill flyers and it's just always going to hit.
It's just really good, and it's got all the big guns. And I went, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And it's reasonably priced. I mean, it's 175 points, and the others are within plus or minus 10 points.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the raw efficiency of the Trueborn or Firstborn, whatever they're called, where it's just they're not paying for things that you don't necessarily want anyway. Like, sure, Primaris got the extra wounds, they've got the extra toughness, they got the better strats, but on your gunboats, you just want something cheap, because when they go out and they nuke something, you don't really care if they survive. Your melter attack bikes are straight up better than the ATVs.
Yep.
The old land speeders, like we're seeing the land speeder storms in a lot of lists because it's a 55-point vehicle that can just go and cap objectives and be really interesting and get you engage points. And you're always going to take the melter attack bikes for pure efficiency over these new storm striders or whatever they're called, the new land speeders, which is a shame because those models are amazing.
But it's the same. I mean, the basic assault cannon heavy bolter land speeders are still reasonably efficient, particularly for Ravenwing.
Yep.
And that might be where you go rather than 3 bikes. You take a basic land speeder with a heavy bolter.
Well, Dark Angels also have things like the land speeder Vengeance, which is pumping out plasma. And obviously plasma it's taken a bit of a hit with things like Death Guard in the meta with the neg 1 damage. But you also have the Nephilim. What's the bomber? They got a bomber. Dark Talon.
Yeah, the Dark Talon's the bomber.
So you got a lot of interesting tools within Ravenwing where you can flex one way or the other depending on what the meta's doing.
I think people a lot of the time underestimate how good the bombers might actually be. Nope. Courtney coming to say hello. Oh, you. I want your screen. See, this is what happens when you... there you go. So we can have a quick look at some of the other games. I'll confirm table 15 for you. Yep. I got made TO for this event.
Hey.
Only
business as normal.
Only in down under pairings, to be fair. And you know what? That's completely fine. I don't mind helping out at all.
Yeah.
There we go. It's one of those things that we've started bringing the extra monitors and stuff when we run tournaments because it just makes our lives easier. And it just happens that I was working through an issue with down under pairings with the guys middle of the week. So they made me a TO so I could see what they were seeing.
Yep.
And they've left it there for me today so I can look at lists and do all that sort of stuff.
Perfect.
And it just happens that it's easier for them to check scores and stuff on my 24-inch monitor than it is for them to check on a tablet.
Turns out, yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
So they've got about, just shy of 4 minutes left remaining.
Yep.
And it looks like this is Rob's top of 5. And I think he's probably... I mean, the Lord Discordant's dead. The Bloodletters are all dead. The Teeth of Terror Chaplain's still kicking around down there. That's actually a pain. That's 3 points lost. I would assume that at this point it's just going to be a case of, oh, cool, what can I score? Yep. And like you said, those Terminators have moved up on the left flank. They're going to, in turn 5, they're going to pick that objective up.
Provided Shane has time. So with 3 minutes left, it is hard dice down in this tournament because of the time restrictions. So whereas normally, if you're playing a casual game with someone, you might be like, yep, look, they'll move up there, they get that. You kind of work out the scores. In this event, hard dice down.
So we're going to see a couple of these cheeky cultists make sure they're in range for things. We're going to see... I mean, I'm trying to work out how many more points Rob can pick up. He's maxed primary. The chances of him... There's nothing that's not already in place to kill the Chaplain other than what's already there. And the Fiends are dead.
Realistically, it's engaged. So those Fiends have come over to score engage in the bottom left, to replace the Discordant that died the last turn.
Well, he's going to get 2 for engage this turn because he's got the 2.
No, he's in 4 quarters. He gets 3. So Fiends have moved in the bottom left. He's got Cultists in the bottom right.
Has to, yeah.
Cultists in the top left.
So he's going to get 3 this turn.
So he gets the 3. So for him, it's just about kind of coming up. He's not going to kill enough things to limit.
I reckon he's looking for while we stand, we fight on that Terminator squad with that Decimator.
Actually, that's a good point.
He's going to run out of time.
So I think with Shane having those Terminators go down into the Bloodletters that were there, I'm surprised he didn't consolidate to get behind that wall. Because he needed to. If you're going to push off the objective, which is fine, you've opened yourself up to get shot. And as a while we stand target, you kill those units, you consolidate towards the Fiends that are still there. You get behind the wall, and then in the bottom of 5, you walk out behind the wall, and that gets you onto your 3 objectives with the big Terminator unit on the left-hand side, and that gets you your 10 on primary. And again, the game's over. It doesn't matter that much, but maybe those 5 points will matter in the final wash for standings.
I actually think they're not going to be able to finish resolving it. I think it's going to be game up.
Yeah.
They've got a minute 30 on the clock. And then we break for lunch, thank God, because I am starving.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Got up at 5 a.m. to get down here and help set up and all the rest of it. So it's been a long day already.
Yeah, no.
But I'm assuming, I actually think this might be even the last game that's still running, to be fair, looking at down under pairings. What have we actually got left running? We've got table 1 still running and table 16 still running.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So it looks like Jordan beat Pete in a near identical list mirror.
Well, they are literally identical.
No, apparently
other than there's one lightning claw instead of a power sword.
That's it. That's the only
difference. Oh no, there's Waller traits and psychic powers that are slightly different.
Yeah.
But other than that,
identical. I saw that game earlier. There was Jordan had his big 10-man Terminator brick charging Pete's 10-man Terminator brick in the center of the table, and they're just going to butt heads the rest of the game.
Well, that's it. You go, both of them have got shock assault, both of them have got inner circle, both of them have got all the other things, and it's like, well...
I'll be interested to see how that one actually was quite a big difference, because when you got lists that are very similar and they score in almost exactly the same way, like you would expect more of a maybe 100 to 80 sort of range. Actually,
looking at this round, you've got a couple of hundreds lurking in there. There was one though that I've just spotted. Liam Scarabotti versus Matt Denham. Matt Denham's running.
Is he running the Sean Naden Eldar list?
Yeah, slightly tweaked.
Okay.
Because unfortunately Naden's list was illegal.
Was it?
Yeah.
Is it because of the razor wing flux?
And look, don't get me wrong. There is. I don't think Sean did anything intentional or anything malicious. I 100% don't believe that he is that sort of personal player.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do, however, believe that copy and pasting out a battle scribe led to the error.
Right. Okay.
Because the FAQ and the GW app both said units of 3 to 9.
Yep.
Whereas battle scribe said units of 1 to 12.
Interesting. Always check your rules.
And he look, from what I understand, I spoke to him in private, and he spoke to a group of us as well, and basically went, I'm quite happy to DQ myself. It's my fault.
Yep.
I'm going to own it.
Yep.
And Nick, who obviously he lost to Sean in the final, and the TOs all basically went, it's a weird grey area where the codex says 1 to 12, the points FAQ says 3 to 9. Like, it's this weird moment in time.
Yep. And that's where it would be nice if GW had a constantly updating, just like a live document that had all the points changes that would go into that, so you could always reference it back.
No, I think, we've got 2 games still going.
Interestingly enough, we've seen a draw there. Aaron Thompson and Seb Zalek have gone a 58 all draw.
58, wow.
Yeah, you don't see too many draws.
That needs to be confirmed. It's always good when people don't press the confirm button.
All right, so it looks like we've hit dice down.
That's interesting.
And Shane has spread out to those 2 objectives. Is that what we're seeing there?
Yeah, it does look like that, yes.
Yep.
So I think they're just wrapping up the scoring now.
Yep. So the Decimators have picked up the last while we stand small Terminator unit.
Yep.
Shane has gone out to the 2 objectives. So you're probably looking at a 5 for primary on the bottom of 5. He will get the 15 for holding that bottom objective. With the 10-man Terminator brick.
There's one Terminator that was in combat with the Fiends.
They might have just picked it up as part of their pack up.
Yeah, they may have.
Because all that was kind of central.
Well, the Chaplain's not there anymore. Although
he couldn't have moved that
No, the
far
Chaplain is. The Chaplain is over on that objective. So he holds 3 objectives there. So that's 10 points.
Give me a 10. Which is interesting because if the Terminators had consolidated behind the wall and been able to move out the following turn, that would have given it 15. Yeah, that would have been
15 points for hold more, yeah.
Yep. So he's going to get the 15, it looks like, for holding that bottom left objective all game long with the OBSEC unit, Stubborn Defiance. He gets his 5 or 10 on primary for the bottom of 5.
Yep.
He'll hold 5 for while we stand, and you'll probably end up looking at somewhere in like a 30 to 40 point.
Oh no, he will only get 5 for while we stand. Yeah. Yeah, because we've still got that other one Terminator from that combat squad.
Alive.
Rob, is that Terminator with the Chaplain still alive?
Okay.
Terminator's dead. Okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah. Okay.
What was the final score?
Oh, okay. So what was the final score? Okay. Cool.
Congrats. Okay. Yeah, the chap. Oh, by 1. Unkillable Chaplain. Gotta love that. So it's a pretty comprehensive win for Rob there. Controlled the primary, kept the secondaries ticking over. Looks pretty good.
Yeah. I'm just going to... I've just updated the scores. Hopefully they'll come through on the screen for you in just a second. There we go. There's my masterful typing there.
Oh, look at that.
Replacing it.
Live updates.
I've got to try and figure out a way of getting it. So I don't know how to do it. I'd actually need someone at the table,
Just
doing it.
yep.
And
Table bossing. I think they
basically,
call it.
it's just me today, and guests like yourself who decided to jump on and chat with me and talk about the games. But that's the final scores there, guys. Thank you very much for joining me for this game, Ben.
Yeah, no,
it's been really
my pleasure. It was fun to commentate, have a chat.
Yeah, well, I think it's lunchtime now, and I don't know about you, but I'm friggin' starving.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm going to go get myself a drink and something to eat. We're back. I think the next round is 1:30 local time. I'm just going to double-check my players' pack, because round 3 starts at 1:30 Perth time.
Yep.
So we'll be back probably around 5 minutes, give or take, depending on how long the players take to get to the table.
Yeah, which is always a while, especially after lunch. Everyone's moving a little bit slower.
Yep. And it's only going to get slower as the day goes on, because I'm looking at round 5 going, oh my God.
Are you here the whole day?
I'm here the whole day.
God damn.
So here's a fun one for those of you playing along at home. Today is my 22nd anniversary.
Congratulations.
So what do you do with your 22nd anniversary?
Commentate.
You commentate a tournament. You know,
Where's Emma?
she's with the kids today.
Okay.
However, they are coming down here tonight for dinner.
Yep.
And then she's going to commentate the last round with me.
Perfect.
So we
That's
do
nice.
actually get a couple of hours
Yeah.
tonight
I love it.
to commentate a 40K.
These are the real sacrifices you've got to make to be a tournament organizer in WA.
That's exactly right. So yeah, we're going to be doing that. She, I was hoping she wouldn't kind of remember.
Yeah.
After
After 22 years, you could be touch and go.
So this is it's at the anniversary of our first date.
Yeah,
It's
okay,
today.
cool.
So we got married on Valentine's Day 5 years later. But yeah, so it is an anniversary, and we both do remember it every year. And it just happened, like we'd actually intended to go out for dinner tonight and all this other sort of stuff, and then the event had to be moved because of the lockdown.
Yep.
And of course, as soon as the date locked in, we both went, well, there we are.
Yeah,
Like,
yep.
what do you do with that? You know, we'd already made the commitment, so
Yeah,
Here
you
I-
make it work.
here I am.
Yep.
But at least, she'll come down tonight. We'll commentate. The kids will get taken home, so they're not here until 10 o'clock at night,
Yep.
because their mum and dad will come down and pick them up. So we're going to at least get a couple of hours tonight, and yeah, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, yep. The reason I didn't play the first time around was because it was the day before Valentine's Day.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't really want to do that to Jess and just be an absolute zombie the next day. Because I think anyone who's playing today and doing the full 5 games, zombie tomorrow. You're not
Yeah.
doing anything.
I agree.
You're going to stay in bed. You're going to nurse your headache.
Look, some of them will be nursing their headaches long before
Yeah, I
tonight
think
and
so.
tomorrow.
So it happens when you have it at a pub.
Oh, you're not wrong. All right, well, we're going to sign off. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back at 1:30 local time for the next game.
All right, peace.